you get your attention, please? The lead, we're
starting our meeting, okay? All right. It's 8:20, and our chairman, Mr. Lalonde.
Thank you very much. A meeting of the Municipal Boards Committee is scheduled for December 12th, 2025 at 8:20 a.m. in the City Commission Conference Room. The purpose of this meeting is to receive and act upon the following recommendations. Number one, on the Airport Advisory Board, recommendation from Airport Director Chris Holstrand to appoint Steve Strickland as citizen at large to serve a 3-year term beginning January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2028. Mr. Strickland will be eligible to serve an additional 3-year term.
Do we want to do these one at a time, since we have questions?
Yeah, I'm doing them one at a time.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry.
Yep, no, you're fine. Number two, on the Beautification Board, recommendation from the horticulturist Stacy Smith to appoint Maria Carver to fulfill the expired term of Stephanie Kearns beginning December 15th, 2025 and ending May 20th, 2027. Ms. Carver will be eligible for an additional 2 full 3-year terms. Oh boy, this one hurts. Number three, Code Enforcement Board. A recommendation from Code Enforcement Manager Senator Marshall to appoint Stephanie Kearns to fulfill the unexpired term of Lolita Berrien, beginning December 15th, 2025, ending May 30th, 2028. Ms. Kearns will be eligible to serve an additional 3 terms. For the public's record, if anyone did not know, Ms. Lolita Berrien, she served the city in capacity for many, many years, and she will be deeply loved and deeply missed. Number 4, the Firefighters Pension Board, recommendation from City Manager Sean Scharouse to appoint Tim Spivey to fulfill an unexpired term of Christopher Hammond as commission-appointed member, beginning December 15, 2025, and ending December 16, 2028. Number 5, on the Lakeland History and Cultural Center Advisory Board, recommendation from Librarian Supervisor Luann Mims to appoint Anna Rivera Ocasio to serve a 3-year term beginning December 15, 2025 and ending December 14, 2028. Ms. Ocasio will be eligible to serve an additional 3-year term. Number 6, on the Mayor's Council of Arts, recommendation from Mayor Bill Mutz to appoint the Strass Center as full member organization located outside of the City of Lakeland to serve on the council.
There's a change we recently made as a provision within the bylaws.
Okay. B, Sylvania Knight to serve the unexpired term of Betsy Boyer, thank you very much, beginning December 15, 2025, ending April 16, 2026. Ms. Knight will be eligible to serve an additional 2 full 3-year terms. Number 7, Public Improvement Endowment Fund Board, recommendation from Mayor Bill Mutz to appoint, Obeng to fulfill unexpired term of Paul Hatfield, beginning December 15th and ending December 31st, 2026. Mr. Obeng will be eligible to serve an additional 2 full 3-year terms. Number 8, on the Zoning Board of Adjustments and Appeals, recommendation from Senior Planner Todd Vargo to appoint Werner Foman to fulfill unexpired term of Gregory Kent beginning December 15th, 2025 and ending April 18th, 2027. Mr. Foman will be eligible to serve an additional 2 full 3-year terms. For information, General Employees Pension Board of Trustee member Rufin Gray was reelected without opposition by the City of Lakeland employees to serve a second 3-year term beginning January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2028. On the Civil Service Board, member Barbara Jordan was reelected without opposition by the City of Lakeland employees to serve a third 3-year term beginning January 1st, 2026 and December 31st, 2028. As a reminder, the city is always accepting applications to all boards and committees. Any interested residents may apply at www.lakelandgov.net, department/city clerk, municipal boards and committees. Now I entertain a motion.
Well, did you want to revisit these?
No, I think I got clarity, because I just, with Barbara Jordan's, I know we're not in charge of that, but it said PC bio, and when I went through the packet online, there wasn't one, so. Right, yeah, so that kind of threw me off.
Okay.
And just a brief explanation on the firefighters pitching board. Christopher Hammond has been, I think, serving that board for a while, has a lot of knowledge and experience, but he has moved outside of the city limits.
Right.
So he's no longer eligible to be the city commission appointed member of that board. So the intention here is that Tim Spivey, who does live in the city limits, will be appointed by the city commission. The way that board's set up, like the pension board, is that you have 3 members appointed by the city commission, 3 by the employees, and then those board members then appoint a 7th member. The intention is that Chris Hammond will be appointed by the board as a 7th member, so he will remain on the board.
Okay.
And there's no residency required for that 7th member.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, and he's a...
Now, in the future, are you wishing to try to take each one of these
Well,
individually?
so historically, we've done that once in a while, not sometimes when there's so many and we've read through it, but when I said one, sometimes we would do it one, like we would take the first one, do a motion in a second, and then do that one, but it's fine. It was answered.
I'd like to make a motion that we
That we approve all of the recommendations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
All right. In 3 minutes, we'll start our agenda study. This will be my last agenda study. No, I don't do that other than agenda study. For the meeting on the 15th at 9 o'clock. We'll have a Christmas parade award that we do annually from that Bob Donahue and team will lead. We'll have a Book of Art City Award, which we do annually, and United Daughters of Confederacy recognition. So those 3 presentations will take place. We have a proclamation then for the 100th birthday. And we'll provide, there are no requests for the provision from the general public. We have 5 asterisk items for consent on this agenda. And the first one will begin, of course, with the minutes and an opportunity for the other 4. we'll discuss this as we go through this meeting, make sure you want them reconsented. And we will have Guy do the municipal boards and committees report, no equalization board, and then we'll get to public hearings A1, and this will be second reading.
These are all second readings that you heard about at first reading. I know Chuck, I think he's behind me here, is prepared to go into any of those that you want to. The first two relate to the solid waste transfer station, the expansion of the footprint for that off of Cumbie Road. Any interest in hearing more about that?
Speed on that. Okay, let's go to 3.
3 is the text amendment to land.
Just one caveat. I am curious about the potential for a water storage reservoir that we've heard about. I don't know if that can be, if that's in the presentation at all. Not for today necessarily even, but just that's going to be something I'm going to want to hear about.
It's not part of it.
I know we were talking about.
It is not?
It is not.
Okay.
How do you want to handle that going forward?
Well, even in conversation, I think that sometimes like things seem like a surprise. We don't get enough information, but when we're on one topic, often we will bring some history or bring in additional information so that we can also be kind of grappling with the whole piece, like all the pieces of the puzzle. I mean, I know that, is Chuck aware of, where the water reservoir will be or is considered at all?
We haven't, I know that hasn't been part of the conversation. Chuck Harvey, the Community Economic Development. That hasn't been part of the discussions related to the conditional use permit or the zoning. And so that's a new item for me.
And it doesn't need to be, as we're thinking about the zoning
Her
of this?
question is, should it be something we talk about?
This end.
Like later when we say we want to have a reservoir on this area, does that have anything to do with the zoning that we're doing now?
I don't believe it does, but I'll also look over.
Yeah, I think we're talking about what Lori mentioned in the stormwater presentation, where she was talking about using the existing ponds in that area. We're currently doing a study
Okay.
in that area, so we're going through the process of doing that study and seeing how that'll work. The portion where the transfer station is going to sit is not necessarily impacted by, is not impacting that area. There is some future expansion out there. I think the LPD has plans to extend their track out there, and also for us to use those ponds potentially.
Yeah.
It depends on if it will work,
Okay.
how significant, what kind of impact it will make. But we are considering that in that area, but it's not part of the transfer station site.
Okay, so whatever
that
we
help?
do here will not preclude anything that we were hoping to do with regard to stormwater.
It will not.
Okay, thank you.
And when you do your study, it's certainly going to take the transfer station into consideration.
Absolutely.
Okay, good catch. Very nice.
All right, the next item is modification to our subdivision plat approval process in the Land Development Code to recognize changes to state law that require that approval to occur on an administrative level. So that's transfer responsibility from the Planning and Zoning Board to city management to handle that process. There's some other provisions as well about allowing early construction of a certain percentage, up to 75% of homes prior to plat approval. Next item, just stop me, if anything you want to discuss.
What number are we on?
That was number 3.
Okay.
Number 4 is in a situation where a portion of a property has been taken by eminent domain. This allows that non-conforming lot to still be built upon, regardless of that, provided certain minimum setbacks in the lot size can be met. Number 5 is allowing security fencing on vacant undeveloped property. So if you have a vacant residential property, you can completely fence that with some kind of non-opaque fence, such as a chain link fence. I think the intention behind that is illegal dumping is probably the main catalyst for that change.
Any problems on going forward on any of that so far? 6
allows roll-off containers to be put on property for non-construction related activities. You currently can put a roll-off on property if there's a building permit, active building permit. This allows something to be put on a property. For example, if you're moving and throwing a bunch of stuff away, there's an eviction process, that type of thing.
Not putting your Christmas decorations back in the attic.
Well, was it a 30-day limit? Correct. 30-day limit for that roll-off container for non-construction related activity. Number 7, we did not go because of the length of the meeting. I think this is fairly straightforward. This is the conditional use to allow a duplex at 420 Plum Street. So do you want Chuck to go through that?
Let's do that, please. Okay.
Good morning. Again, Chuck Robbie with Human Economic Development. This is a conditional use permit for property located at the northwest corner of Iowa and Plum Street. And the reason why the duplex here needs to have a conditional use permit is that in multifamily zoning districts in the land development code, duplexes require a conditional use permit. And so the site is 0.17 acres. The subject property is, scroll through here. So it's right there at the corner. Iowa's on the right, Plum's on the south, the bottom of the screen. The living area is 1,888 square feet. We have renderings that would be adopted as part of the conditional use permit. And so this is very straightforward. We've had a number of these that have come forward for commission action here over the past year or two. And so you see the site here and the kind of the uses that are nearby. Compatible with its surroundings. It's right off of Massachusetts Avenue. And so this is just another type of infill housing option in the mass market area, Midtown, just north of downtown.
Any questions on that? All right, next. Thank you, Chuck.
All right, the next two, 8 and 9, are the PUD and small-scale comp plan amendment for the redevelopment of Wedgewood. We did go through that at the last meeting. It's going to get a lot of attention, so I don't know if you want to go through that some more this morning or have questions.
We'll do this thoroughly on Monday. Okay? Yes, Commissioner.
And I'm just curious, I did have a call from the developer side that they were asking to meet with us. I have not had an opportunity to meet from the developer side. I've been focused kind of on the residential side, but will the developer be presenting on Monday? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I received the call.
Also, Mayor, and I won't be here Monday, but just for point of clarification, this is the entitlement, Chuck, right? So this is, from the developer standpoint, is they want the entitlements to do these different changes to the land use in an effort to when there's a purchaser down the road, they can build these things. So it's not that these are happening immediately. It's not that this developer potentially is building these things on site. This is a land use change that is for the entitlement on the property to potentially sell it.
And so in terms of the actions that the commission will be asked to actually approve on Monday will be the land use changes. And so the land use changes are for tracks 9A and 9B. And so those are the areas within the current planned unit development zoning ordinance that were defined as future land use areas. And so those are on either side of Wedgewood Estates Boulevard. And the addition of 2.48 acres in what is track 12. And so that's immediately east of the Savannah Cottages Assisted Living Facility on the north side of Carpenter's Way. That's intended to be the amenity center for the future multifamily and single-family development program. But that's correct. The intent, and this is what we've heard from the developer, and he can certainly clarify on Monday, is that their intent is to sell tracts off to other developers who actually build the.
So, and also just to add into that, this is the second developer that has come to us and asked for land use change. So the first one was John Hall when they purchased the property, and he was the broker on the deal to get these different entitlements changed. It wasn't that entity or group was purchasing, changing entitlements, and building. So it's flipped once. So I just want that to go on public record because I'm not here on Monday. But just for point of clarification, this is really packaging for someone to either sell to different segments, to build in different arenas, sort of like Riverstone. So Riverstone was developed and you had different builders that came in and built different spots, correct? And then, but this is the entitlement process. And I'm just saying that for the public at large. It's the entitlement process. It says what can be built where with land use and code, correct?
The land use gives the kind of the minimum and maximum of what can be built, and then the PUD really gets into the specifics of the unit types, unit count, and the locations of those individual unit types. And so, and this is an update or a major modification to a PUD zoning ordinance that was approved back in 2022.
Right.
And so what we'll do is we'll kind of highlight that again is that there are some modifications to the layout, of course, the additional lands for track 12, the development program for track 9A and 9B. Those will all be spelled out. There's a new layout or a revised layout that actually works a lot better. There's a net increase of 19 dwelling units And so this is an incremental change to what was approved by the City Commission back in 2022. So the land use and zoning action will occur, the action would occur on Monday, and then there's the separate development agreement, which gets into the concurrency vesting, the concurrency entitlement, and that's where there'll be a lot more detail on the right-of-way dedications, impact fee credits, and impact fee and proportionate share payments. That will be transportation-based, and that will be what is scheduled or what will be continued to January 5th and then January 20th for first and second hearings.
Right. I just want clarification for the public so that it's not necessarily an imminent, nobody's breaking ground. Like, this is just a step in the process that is multifaceted that allows for these things to happen, but there's not necessarily a purchaser or a buyer or developer that's ready to break ground and start pouring concrete and rebar and curbing and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, the next steps following the zoning action and the development agreement would be the submittal of site plan or subdivision plat and construction plan package. So it depends on if they want to move forward, you know, if the developer, ultimately whoever is building, is ready to move forward with, say, the townhome product or the single-family detached product or the apartment product, then they would submit either subdivision plat and construction plan for review and approval, technical review and approval by staff, or the site plan for review and approval by staff and for permitting by agencies like SwiftMud.
And I'm just trying to clean it up. Yeah.
Ms. Rose?
So I just want to clarify one thing. SJD Development has been the corporate owner and applicant throughout, going all the way back to when they acquired the property in 2021. You mentioned John Hall. John and his son Jonathan were affiliated with SJD Development and Scott House. The Halls have since exited, but Mr. House has been the principal behind SJD Development all along. So that's close to what you asked or described, but I wanted to make sure it hasn't changed hands. The ownership hasn't changed. The parties behind that ownership have changed a little.
Well, I thank you for that clarification. This is more, my comments are more for the public to understand how the process works, because sometimes what appears in the media and what appears online in different places is that this is not a step in the process that's allowing future use to have that many units. So it feels sometimes like this is we're breaking ground tomorrow. And I just want to have that clarification in there that it does entitles whoever's doing this to be able to build these things on that property.
And the developer and his engineer just joined us as well. So
I don't have questions for them. I'm just doing point of clarification for the public.
And there's a full technical review that will be following the zoning approval for whatever phases move forward.
Back in 2022, was there a lot of opposition, I think, on some of this area, wasn't there?
There was, and you will hear from members of the neighborhood on Monday as well that have concerns and comments that we've heard through the planning and zoning process. We believe that we've addressed those concerns through the conditions of approval for the PUD. And we also believe that we are addressing those conditions through the development agreement on the transportation side that is still under development and that would be going forward on January 5th and on January 20th.
And some of which relates to the delay in this entire process and the anxiousness that comes along from that, because you can conceive all kinds of things in the meantime. And including with respect to commitment on the property. Commissioner Matt.
Since we're refreshing our history on this particular project, could you remind me of the special kind of HOA that allows you to kind of collect and make?
So
Is that still intact, and is that still part of this?
That's still in place. That was approved by that was developed, was approved through the state and by the city commission, so that structure is in place.
Okay, and that's, in my opinion, when we went through that process and talked about that, it was reassuring with regard to the financial capacity to do the improvements and to do some of the things. I know when it's been sitting there, some of the neighbors are worried about, kind of a code enforcement situation of things not being mowed or, taken care of after the storm. Those are the emails that we get. Could you just explain again how that, when that is applied to this property, what that means?
And so that'll be something we can get into on Monday, but that will be for the, depending depending on the housing type, the product, the structure's in place, but my understanding is that would not necessarily be triggered and be functional until a particular developer comes in a particular area that is covered by the CDD and has infrastructure needs or other things that would be covered through that community development district.
And if portions are sold off, how does that affect the CDD?
The CDD, it covers certain areas, covers all these new areas to be developed. So as those are sold off, they would still be subject to the CDD.
Okay.
Each individual?
It sticks with it.
I'm sorry?
Each individual developer would be?
Yeah, it covers the area that was described in the ordinance that the city commission approved, which was the whole new development. Not the existing areas, obviously, but
Okay.
the existing areas that are already built on. And so the way the CDD works, just real quickly again, is once you start selling lots, then the CDD assesses the owners of those lots. It has a robust collection mechanism in that you can actually put those assessments on the tax roll. So it has a much higher collection rate than just a regular HOA collection. So it is just a more robust way to finance the necessary improvements in a development.
Thank you, Palmer. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Wonderful. Yes, Commissioner
Yes,
Long.
so, and just for public clarification, something I'm trying to understand, will we be able to talk to him about all facets and to Commissioner McCarley's, or excuse me, Mayor-elect, Madam Mayor? I get too many titles until you get there. I'm so sorry. We're just honored to have you know that we're going to get you in there. So that's an honor. But I know that some of these concerns, I know that we are going to want to address, and to Commissioner Madden's point, I know that there have been at least 37 code enforcement violations. Some of the ones that are more concerning are like a 4137 Derby, where since there's been a different change in flow by the overgrowth and allowing that, part of the reason why I voted yes on that CDD is that they were going to address some of these maintenance issues. This one gentleman, he's about to lose his pool. It's going to cave in. So I don't know how we get to talk to them about that. And
That can all be discussed during the public hearing, through that process on Monday.
Okay.
I know right now there are no outstanding code enforcement cases in the overall development. And, in terms of what is causing, there's a lot of analysis that would have to occur to determine exactly what's causing the seawall failure, and so we don't know exactly the cause of that. And so there's a lot there that's really separate from the zoning and the land use action that the commission will be asked to take care of on Monday. So the developer's aware of those issues, can address specific questions that the commission has, but it's really separate from the zoning and the land use actions that we're talking
just want
about.
to make sure that we can still ask all. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Sure, and this needs to be a more robust time on Monday, and so we will want it to be, so it'll take some time.
100%.
And we'll do that then. It is a great picture, though, that delay brings complications, and activation is what solves those matters. Takes us to 10.
All right, 10 is the second reading of the proposed amendment to the stormwater utility fees, which would include an increase in the actual fee for the different land use categories, reduction of the equivalent residential unit measurement from 5,000 square feet to 50 square feet, and then a reduction of the stormwater credit for on-site stormwater facilities from 75% of the stormwater fee to 50% of the fee. So we heard a lot about that last time.
We talked about it, and I want to really set up our thinking for this particular vote to some degree, at least with a recommended opinion from my vantage point, and that is that we have one of two things to do here. None of us are debating whether or not we'll have a stormwater need in terms of funding. So we either have, as you think about this going forward, we have the opportunity to approve what is in place, because it'll take us probably easily till March before we'd be reconsidering this again, and get it in place with the anticipation of the fact that begins collection in March through the year. Do an additional study or recommend on how you might split that and modify that plan that had been approved going forward. Or you say, let's just do it one time, in which case you're going to start to collect these funds in 27. never in 26 by the time it gets done. That would be my prognostication. So the urgency of getting started is really what you're thinking about, because the permanence of this is probably not something you're going to want to do, because there's some concern that we have over-corporated the split between residential and corporates. And so that's part of what you would be studying. So I'm going to take less of a leadership role in this other than to suggest to you that you think about it. And is this something you want to get the clock started on in terms of collection in 26? Or do you want to wait until 27 until you do that? I think I just may have said 28 a minute ago and I meant 27. In terms of getting that started, because it will take you a year to get this done if we don't do a poll on Monday.
So just from a legal perspective, the one thing you can't do is make a substantial change between first and second reading of an ordinance. So you're kind of stuck with what's in this ordinance at this point. In addition, if you make a change, that has to be supported by the consultant's analysis that meets the legal standard for a valid special assessment. And Lori is our consultant.
Our consultant is here.
Yes. So maybe you would like to weigh in on this just a little bit?
If you'd like me to, I can.
Yeah, please stand and state your name. Thanks.
I'm Sandy Newbarth with Answer Advisory. We've been working with Lori and her staff since the end of 23. We did an analysis of your single-family residential parcels. Okay, first of all, throughout the state of Florida, the impervious area methodology is tried and true. About 72% use an impervious area methodology. The courts have upheld that methodology. And I'd say about 58% of those programs base the unit, the billing unit, on the average single-family house, okay? So what we did is we measured the impervious area for a stratified random sampling technique is what we use. It's the most accurate, and what we did, we found that the average impervious area associated with your single-family residential parcel is 3,850 square feet. So that's the base billing unit. Like I said, most of the programs throughout the state use a base billing unit. So then the non-residential would be billed based off of the average size of the single-family house. Right now, you have it as 5,000 square feet. So basically, that is saying that the average single-family house has 5,000 square feet of impervious area, and they get one billing unit. And then non-residential gets the number of billing units based on their actual impervious area divided by that 5,000 square feet. So the new analysis has shown that there's really 3,850 square feet to every single-family residential house. So that means that now the non-residential, their impervious area, because they've been charged based on their actual impervious area, would be divided by the 3,850 square feet. So where they were getting one ERU before, they'll get 1.3 ERUs now. So yes, it is saying that, I mean, it's not really saying that they're paying more than they should, but they're now going to be reanalyzed based on the new size that is the single-family residential house. And that's the basis of how do we create a billing unit that's fair and reasonable, because that's what the courts have said. They've said stormwater does, whenever you charge one of these fees, you have to say, how does it benefit property? The courts have said stormwater does benefit property because that's who you're charging. So then you have to have a fair and reasonableness to make up that billing unit. So it can't be arbitrary. We can't just say, okay, well, we don't like this, so we're going to charge residential more, because then you'd really be overcharging them for their burden that they're placing on the city's stormwater system. So the impervious area says the amount of runoff that a property contributes to the stormwater system is based off the impervious area, because impervious area is hard surfaces that doesn't let the stormwater run into the ground. So it runs somewhere, and and then the city has to deal with it. through flooding and through water quality. So that is what that base billing unit is. And I know it's a hard hit for the non-residentials to hear it, but it is an accurate reflection of how they should be billed.
But they've already paid millions of dollars for stormwater ponds and other mitigation for their stormwater. So it seems in-houses don't do that.
So, and that's where your mitigation credit comes in, because you have that mitigation credit. Right now, you have a very generous mitigation credit. So you're saying that if they just reduce their runoff and they have that on-site system, they don't necessarily have to contain it at 100% or anything like that, but they reduce it, so they reduce that burden. They're getting a 75% credit. What we're suggesting is that it get moved to 50%. So not saying that there's a lot of things, so they're reducing their runoff, but they're not necessarily completely
Eliminate.
yeah, and so they should have to pay for something. And even if they did completely eliminate it, there's a lot of things that the city does just by having a stormwater utility, and the permits and the water quality issues and things, access to their property. So there are a lot of other things that come into play with managing a stormwater system that they get the benefit from. So that's why the recommendation is to go to a 50% credit.
Just to add to that, we do have a complete exemption. If you retain 100% of your stormwater, you are completely exempt from our stormwater fee. It's only if you do not retain all of it that you get this partial credit.
Okay, and then my last question is, with regard to when you do studies,
Yes.
you know, certainly there's a threshold at which the percent should increase, I would think. And so, you know, 1.3 would be 133%, but there are some, because of the tax relief going lower, that it's 300% increase. And so how do you handle that in other areas where certain people are experiencing such a high increase and not really, only having a couple weeks to grapple with that with regard to their budgeting and their finances?
So I didn't think it was 300%. I thought that, so that analysis that you guys saw the other day, that was based off of the end of 5 years. That was not based off of what you're anticipating going to at the $11.27. That was based off of the 5-year analysis. So that was a little bit skewed because he represented that it was 133% increase for his members. It's actually the first year without a mitigation credit. It's a 50.58%. Yes, it sounds high, but that encompasses the fact that you're going to increase the rates. And the fact that the ERU value has been changed. So for those without a mitigation credit, it is about a 50.58% increase for non-residential. So residential, they've all been paying one anyway, so it's not like they're going to realize anything has changed except for the charge went up, and it's going up like $1.55. These rates were designed to spread out the cost. I think you've been at the $9.72 rate since 2021. That's a long time to go without increasing it. And because you stayed stagnant so long, now you got to make a hard decision, you know, whereas if we would have been increasing it every year, it wouldn't be such a hard, you know, increase and impact.
And the gap of need would not be so great because we'd have had funding earlier.
So while these rates that are projected show that without a mitigation credit, it's a 50.58% increase for the non-residential. After the first year, it's like a 13%, and then a 12%, and then a 10%, and then a 9%. So then it's saying, okay, we're not gonna get into this situation again. We got to get out of the situation we're in right now. But then after that, we're going to make a plan so that we don't get back into that situation. And so we're going to gradually increase it every year. And so that's what this plan is designed to do. Now, you're right, the ones with the mitigation credit, because of the ERU value and because we're suggesting changing the mitigation credit from 75% to 50%, those would see the first year about a 200% increase in their charge. But they're paying very little right now as far as on a per ERU basis, like $2 and something cents or something like that.
Something about 4.5%.
And this is.
Yeah, and it's only about 4.5% that actually have those on-site systems that maintain or reduce the burden on the city's stormwater fund.
And it's 9 months the first year, so they're on a budgeting basis, it's not a shocker.
But anyways, what you're saying, I don't know. That's going to be the individual property owners. I mean, as your tax bills go up, you just have to adjust your budget. There's not anything that I've seen that says we feel sorry for these ones that are taking a bigger hit than the others, and so let's give them a break for the first year or two. I've not seen anything like that because these are based off of the burden that's placed on the city's stormwater system, and so it has to be fairly and reasonable. If you start shifting that burden over to the other property owners, they're paying more than their share, and so it's not fair.
It just seems like the business community is paying more than their fair share, because I was saying if you took drone footage of the city, especially the houses that were built before we had land code, they're the ones flooding, the mobile home parks like Bonnie, all of these areas that are the ones wanting the improvements so that they're not flooded, have no stormwater mitigation that they've personally paid for, invested in those areas. And then the folks building the new, businesses and providing jobs, and they are hit with the biggest 300% increased bills to pay to help these residents. And, not that they're cold-hearted and don't care about the flooding, it just seems to me that just paying $1.50 more a month for the resident who's flooded versus thousands and thousands of dollars extra at a 300% increases, it just doesn't seem as equitable as I thought that we should be able to do.
I had a thought to that. I would say growth and development, though, has increased the amount of stormwater that we're experiencing in the city. So if you look at the overall growth of the city back then as compared to now, there's a lot less impervious area. So that impervious area has affected how stormwater is handled in our city. So that growth has, even though they were paying for it, has put additional impact on the residential neighborhoods in this area. Just another thought to layer to add to that.
So that's enough, and I really appreciate that input into this meeting. You can relax. Because I think it helps to build the thought of what do we do on timing, which is because this is malleable over time. It's whether or not you want to get started now with a plan that you can then continue to vet the reasonableness of, or wait until you extend that. It's just we're going to probably delay another year, and it's going to create more complications and costs and stormwater. So give that some consideration as you think and pray through that weekend. Yes?
I have a question. So, I don't know who to direct it to. Maybe he, I don't know. One of y'all. So when you think about impervious surface and you think about all of our roads and everything that we do infrastructure-wise, this helps us catch up on the impervious connectivity that we have throughout the city.
Correct. Lori Smith, manager of Lakes and Stormwater. So there's a lot of areas within the City of Lakeland that actually don't have significant stormwater drainage. One of the studies we're doing right now is in South Lake Hollingsworth neighborhood. There are, we get some flooding there even during some heavy afternoon storms, not even a severe event. And there just aren't the stormwater drainage systems in those residential neighborhoods that were built before there were stormwater systems. So those residents are being impacted because of the additional roadways and everything else that's going on, and there's no stormwater drainage to drain away their systems. And that's common throughout the city, that there just wasn't the stormwater infrastructure when a lot of these residential neighborhoods were developed.
Easton is a perfect example of that. So how the bricks and stuff are washing out, there's no drainage there, so the water is just flowing over and through time and has eroded the base of those bricks and stuff. So,
And just to add on to that, I think, water wins every time. So, and wars are fought over water and clean water. So I think it's really important that we have to cobble it together to figure out how to do it. So you think about Easton and you think about how that's getting washed out. and you have a 100-year infrastructure system under the ground that's not necessarily drawing it to where it goes, and then you add impervious higher up somewhere else because we have a multifamily unit or we have something else, water's gonna win. Like, water's gonna end up pooling wherever we can't pull it away. So I just to add that into the discussion, and again for Monday, just to think about that, since I won't be here to echo that again. I can't vote on this, but I think that we definitely have to do something, and I think even the business community that I've talked to, because someone, pushed all our cell phone numbers out to all their over 200 members last week, which most people have my cell number, so it's fine, but I really think it's important to be considerate of the impact. We all want to think about our own impact and like, well, I have a house and it's this much impervious area, but I'm on higher ground and I don't affect the stormwater elsewhere. Well, yeah, everybody does. Everybody pitches into the stormwater piece. And we're trying to retrofit, just like what we talked about with Road Diet years ago. We're living through the mess of having to retrofit and do a redo on all this aging infrastructure. So we have to do something, and I'm not hearing a whole lot of other ideas than what was presented already. Now we can stretch it out to the 8-year mark, which one organization didn't like that idea either, but we have to do something. And I think, this is the best information we have to date. If there's other information, I would defer to you all who are going to be here on Monday to make that decision. If there's more information, we can garner and then move forward. But something has to be done, and I don't know that pushing it. If we can go back legally, Palmer, and like in the future revisit, reshape, look at the numbers, then I guess we can do that and not change our minds, but pivot and be nimble and tweak as we go along the way. Or are we locked into this forever?
I mean, once you issue bonds or some other form of finance, that kind of locks you in as a floor for what you can do.
The aggregate spending.
But until that time, you do have more flexibility.
Mike, sorry.
Yes.
I hear your urging here. I think there's more to talk about on Monday to really work through.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So my preset
Up for you on this is just to think about timing and availability. Yes.
And you're right, we will have more time on it, but I would like to share, to concur. Everyone here has made some very good and strong points. The one thing that we're not saying is today it's $68 million. Next year it's going to be more. The next year it's going to be more. By the time we get to 5 years, when it is for most 133%, the cost of the $68 million project is probably going to be somewhere around 120. Yeah, in the hundreds. So, I mean, we need to do something. We are also beholden to all constituents as well as our business owners. So.
Okay. Any other weigh-ins on that?
Sorry,
Yes.
I'd just like to add on to what Commissioner McCarley said. Just like with the Wedgewood property, that any action you take on Monday, if it were to get approved, does not mean we're going out and bonding. There is so much time that's required. One, it can't be implemented until March 31st because of all the programming that goes into changing the mitigation credit if you adopted what has been proposed. And the other piece is changing the ERU. Okay, that takes a good bit of time, but also there's a lot of time that's got to get put into the design work and those types of things. So there is no concern that if for some reason it's adopted, that down the road you can't, with the new commissioners, go in and change it somewhat to then spread it farther, because we're not going to be going to the bond market anytime soon. If that helps in your decision making. You can always come back with the new commissioners and tweak what you've adopted.
All right. Think for a pre-commission meeting discussion that's pretty well worked through. All right, B1, resolution.
B1 is the first step of a two-step process to put all the different lots cleaning, clearing, and demolition assessments that you adopt during the year on next year's tax roll, and this kind of ties back to the Wedgewood discussion. This is the exact same collection process that the CDD would be entitled to use once they become active.
And number 2?
Number 2 is supporting a particular build option for a roadway in northeast Lakeland. I'll let Truck walk you through this one.
Good morning, Chuck Barbie again with the Community Economic Development Department. So last October, the City Commission received a presentation from the DOT project consultant on a study for a new road corridor between State Road 33 on the south side of I-4 and Walt Williams Road along the north side of the interstate. And so, kind of the genesis of the study goes back over 25 years in that we've got a large run along the interstate between Old Cubby Road and Exit 38 where we don't have a crossing of the interstate. So there are a lot of the traffic north of I-4, particularly as we want to get to Williams, Fort Apollo area, the Innovation District long term, have to, it's like squeezing toothpaste into different ends of the tube, and so it's pushing traffic to either side. And what we do have now are known level of service deficiencies, of course, on Circle Loop Road, north of the interstate. It is also part of the city's high injury network between Fernery, kind of the boat ramp, and up towards the north side of Sandpiper. And then Exit 38, even with all that construction that's underway right now, there are some concerns that long-term, there are going to need to be additional improvements along the State Road 33 corridor unless we don't do something else. And so in recognition, Bridgewater was a former development regional impact, and now it's a PUD, but it was part of a much larger regional development back 25 years ago. And in 2000, the development order included a condition to study and reserve a corridor from 33 to Walt Williams Road. The problem was that we didn't know what the corridor was going to be. And so as we started to see development occurring, like the Bridgewater Golf Course, Villages of Bridgewater itself, and then the First Park Industrial Complex, we started to execute reservation agreements with individual property owners starting in 2006. The problem with that approach was it's very piecemeal. And the way we structured those agreements as well is that they were also not only for a road, and if the road was determined not to be feasible, it would be for a bike pedestrian facility. So kind of jumping forward to a little less than 10 years ago, University Park at Bridgewater, which is it's on the former golf course property, it's between First Park and the Villages, updated the reservation agreement to include a much cleaner 100-foot wide corridor from 33 back towards the interstate along its property. And it's got a reservation period until July 31st, 2032. So there's a clock that's still ticking. It's not loud yet, but we know that we need to land on a corridor, be able to get it in public ownership to keep a viable corridor moving forward. And we've got about a little less than 7 years to do that. That development built the first 1,400 feet of Tradeport Boulevard as a concurrency mitigation requirement, until the Moving Florida Forward project that's under construction now was programmed and began. There was also, we've got, and you'll hear me kind of toggle back and forth between Tradeport Boulevard and Tradeport Drive. Tradeport Drive is a backage road that runs parallel to 33 behind the new HCA warehouse that connects that complex to the traffic light University Boulevard, which will soon be a roundabout. But the city actually was moving forward with soliciting proposals for a feasibility study because the corridor involves a crossing on the interstate. DOT really wanted to kind of take charge of that process. But the good news was that they were also bringing half the funding for the study to the table. So the DOT kicked in $500,000, the city kicked in $500,000 to conduct the study. The study has been conducted, has been completed. The corridor is in the comprehensive plan. It's in the long-range transportation plan that was adopted by the TPO this week, and actually going back a couple of iterations of the long-range plan. Pathways corridor is also in the comprehensive plan. And we do have the resolution that would be asked for consideration on Monday also includes language that states our intent, or the commission's intent, to restrict truck traffic north of Tradeport Drive. So we don't want the new corridor to be a truck route because of the neighborhood impacts north of the interstate, Wendell Watson Elementary, and everything, kind of heading towards the north side of Lakeland.
Excellent.
So we've got a couple of exhibits here that just show the corridors that were studied by DOT. I'm sure you heard a lot of concern from the residents of the Lake Luther corridor because it would be going right through an existing neighborhood. And so there were concerns about residential impacts. As you get further north, a lot of the corridors 2, 3, and 4 really somewhat overlapped with each other. It was just a matter of what was the best, kind of the best alignment overall when we're starting talking about the north side there. Most of what we heard through the study were either a no build, why are we doing this, or corridor 2. And so we'll get into corridor 2 here real quick because that's really what the resolution is expressing support for. So the next slide shows, and I'll step out of the way here, but adjusted corridor 2 comes up the corridor that has been reserved by University Park of Bridgewater, crosses the interstate, and then comes up with Walt Williams Road south of Wendell Watson Elementary. There's a conservation easement north of the villages of Bridgewater. This alignment avoids. And so there is going to be an ample buffer between this road corridor and Village 14 that was constructed here in the past couple of years. The cross-section that's also part of the resolution is a 2-lane cross-section with a trail on one side. And that mirrors very closely what exists today. And so the next couple of slides here show, these are from yesterday, so you see the corridor, see the ongoing State Road 33 construction. This is looking from 33 back towards interstate. Villages of Bridgewater is on the left, University Park of Bridgewater is on the right. And the next slide just shows the kind of the ultimate 2-lane cross-section that exists today. And then you've got a 10-foot concrete trail on one side of the road. So the intent is to carry that cross-section forward. And so really that's kind of the background, the details, and be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Exciting. Any comments or questions? All right, we'll take that up Monday if there are. Thank you.
Thanks.
That brings us into,
We're at the development agreement with SJD Wedgwood. As Chuck mentioned in the presentation on the PED ordinance, we're requesting a continuance of that until the first and second meetings in January. I think we're very close at this point to an agreement on the terms of that. We had a very good meeting last week with the developer and his team. And I think we're there with impact fee credits and land donations and concurrence investing periods. I mean, there's just some minor remaining details on what right-of-way needs to be donated for straightening out realigning the misaligned intersection at Wedgwood Boulevard and Heather Point and Carpenter's Way. So,
will this be an approval point at the meeting or just a discussion?
Just for Monday, we're just going to request that it be continued until the first and second meetings of January. But we feel like we're getting very close to an agreement with the developer on this.
Okay, great. That then brings us to CRA. And Valerie, did you see that?
It's right outside the door.
Yeah, let's get Valerie in. Then let's bring this brother.
All right, the first item is a task authorization with Dix Height Partners for the Lake Water Master Plan. And I don't know, Valerie, do you want to present that, or Alex? Or
if you don't have a chair, stay here, please. That'll be fine.
So, good morning. Valerie Bott, CRA Manager. This is the master plan for Lake Wire and Freedom Park. So if you could hit the next slide, we can describe just what are those study areas. And as you all know, we have analyzed a lot of connectivity issues within this area, and Lake Wire Drive being one of those, but also with the Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue corridor. And just how do we make sure we are honoring the Palm Arboretum and all of the features that Lake Wire has, and making sure we can bring those connections back. So this study is in 3 areas. Red is primarily the Lake Wire frontage and the Freedom Park area. Then we go into how do we bring those connection points back, and that's the primary study area. But we couldn't forget the secondary area, which is, of course, our new Prospect Lake Wire residence, as well as Bonnet Springs Park. So all of the concepts and visioning that we did as a CRA through Downtown West, as well as all of our other departments where they've had concepts of how we can bring these points together. This will be a master plan that not only brushes those off, but sees what is feasible. And then it will give us a path forward on how we construct the appropriate connection points in this central area.
And that particular slide illustrates how imperatively close all those issues are to one another.
That's correct. So with this proposal, the consultant will be providing urban design and landscape architecture, architectural visioning, civil engineering, which is probably one of the biggest components, as well as cost estimation to tell us what is the estimated cost for all of the connection points, the park improvements, the Lake Wire frontage improvements, and in each of those, we can evaluate further what we should act on first.
And they have expertise in figuring out, like with the CSX.
Yes, CSX, FDOT, as well as working with our stakeholders. We know we have two schools in very close proximity, one immediately next door to Freedom Park. So ensuring that we're answering all of those stakeholders' concerns and questions, as well as working with the other regulatory authorities.
This is a consent item for consideration, so comments?
I was just curious because I was having a conversation with Chuck the other day about to get a crossing over CSX. It's not even just the difficulty of getting a crossing. It's also then you have to remove a crossing or silent zones. There's just so much that goes into that I just, want to make sure. I'm sure that these consultants are fully aware of all those complexities.
Any other comments?
This is not on consent right now, is it?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm off, I'm sorry. Yes, it is not on consent. I apologize.
Mayor.
Nothing is on consent, yes.
Well, Valerie, could you speak to the role that your community and economic development peers, Public Works and Parks and Recreation have and will play in this, and sort of the CRA's role in funding the study, but bringing along some pretty heavy expertise from our other departments on this?
Yes, and Brian is correct. We are just taking the lead on this because we're funding the study, but we are certainly leaning on Parks, Recreation, Cultural Arts, and Public Works, because these are all elements that they've already envisioned and seen, but they are hitting that same roadblock. How much is this going to cost? What is really feasible? And this master plan is really a concerted effort between three different departments, and the CRA is just taking the funding portion to get it accomplished.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Valerie. Maybe on Monday, Valerie, if you could just talk about, we do a lot of what seems at times plans, master plans and studies. And just as a reminder, I think a lot of us know where this is going, but I think it would be a good refresher on where does this fit into the bigger scheme of some of our other master plans and future steps, long-range plans. Just if you could talk to that on Monday, that'd be great. Thank you.
Excellent. Good tip. Anything else? All right, go to item B.
All right, B, C, and D are the mass market properties, and as you know, these are transactions that staff, I think the commission, all the parties involved have struggled mightily with over the last several months. This initially was a fairly straightforward transaction. You can disagree about the amount of credits to be provided on the different transactions, but it was still fairly straightforward in its concept. This became very complicated, however, when the consultant came back with a preliminary study result that identified the parking areas that are being utilized by 820 and 830 North Massachusetts Avenue as a potential site for a parking garage. The discussion then became, well, let's just sell those tenants the buildings, and then we'll do a lease agreement with for the property that they're currently using for parking. The problem with that, though, is unless you're willing to guarantee parking on those properties, that has a severe impact on the property values of the structures themselves. And as you heard at the last City Commission meeting, we were working with an appraiser to try to figure out what that impact was. And here is what the appraiser has indicated the impact to the appraised value is for house, the 820 North Mass property. It's the reduction in appraised value due to parking. So our appraiser has indicated that if you ultimately build a parking garage on the property being utilized for their parking currently, and then require that they lease spaces in that parking garage at the market rates for that parking garage, that reduces the appraised value of 820 North Mass by $1,190,000. There's certain assumptions with that. The assumption that we're using is that a parking garage is built in 10 years, And I think the tenant has indicated that they need 80 parking spaces, so those are built into that appraisal. So if you pull the parking areas out of that transaction, out of that sale, and then you have this parking garage uncertainty associated with that, that reduces the appraised value by $1,190,000. So there's the breakdown of how that affects the transaction. Per the City Commission's request, we looked at future capital improvements, and I think the City Commission wanted to see what that looks like if that's just focused on remediation from storm damage as opposed to, other future improvements. And, we're using a $60,000 figure. That is the figure that was provided by an insurance adjuster to fix the damage in the collective space, which is still, I believe there's drywall missing and other issues. So that's where that $60,000 figure is. I know that the owner of House 820 is requesting additional capital improvements, but we're just providing you what I think you wanted to see from the last meeting. So that's where that $60,000 figure is coming from. So that's what that transaction looks like when you throw that parking garage question in the middle of that.
Do all three.
And we might as well go ahead and at least do 830 because it has the same issue. That's where they're currently using, with the property they're using for parking is, again, have been identified as a potential site for a parking garage. And under the same analysis, the appraiser has come back indicating that if you build a parking garage on there, that will reduce the appraised value of 830 North Mass by $610,000. We, again, are using a $60,000 figure for storm remediation. I'm not sure if that's the exact number, and the tenants can provide additional information on that. That's the best information we have right now for that.
It would be what it is, correct? I mean, whatever it takes.
Right, and I think that they already actually remediated most of the damage, so I'm sure they have some expenses that they could point their finger to. But that's really not the focus of staff. The thing that staff's struggling with is the effect of the parking garage uncertainty on the appraised value. So that's the effect on Doe Bakehouse, 830 North Mass. Then 310 Plum Street is a very different situation in that they have the required on-site parking that they need, so they do not need off-site parking. So that's we're just showing you what that looks like
without additional
without future capital improvements. So there's not that same parking garage variable in this. So that's what staff is struggling with. Is it makes a huge wild swing if you introduce the parking garage into this equation versus what we were originally looking at when it was at the advisory board and it was being negotiated at that time. I think that the neighbors may be proposing something different for moving forward with the purchase of their property. And I don't know whether we want to go into that right now or wait till Monday to get into that. I think they're looking at potentially more of a straight purchase of their property at this point. So that's my introduction to that. Staff feels like there's just too much of an uncertainty for us to be able to make a recommendation for a sale at this time with that parking garage question out there.
So let me make a comment on top of that.
Okay.
So the fact that we have so much staff uncertainty is because we don't have staff direction in terms of what they want to do for protection of the property that's non-developed today. And so there's a couple ways to be able to approach the parking scenario. The parking scenario could be a deduction like that. It could be a lease commitment of, let's say, 10 years for spaces for the two properties that need them. And in an unknown configuration, that maybe those 80 or 20 for Doe would be spaces that are within 1,000 feet of the property that'll be protected depending on how we develop. Because within a 10-year period of time, the likelihood of having a parking garage and not having 100 spaces within 1,000 feet of those two facilities is probably pretty low, And so, it's high that we wouldn't have a parking garage done by then. We could. It doesn't necessarily even go on those spaces. But the flexibility to be able to move lots for those spaces, if that were acceptable, would lessen the credit mitigation because of the commitment it would make. There's a concern perhaps for transferability if you decided to move somewhere else, in terms of those spaces and what would happen if they were selling property that they had acquired, and that would probably have to be extended to a seller too. Yes?
Yeah, I understand all that. This is some things that really stayed up and read this thing. How about, isn't there a way that we can just, for a good example, House 820 wants to assume where Artifacts is. And where Doe Bake House is right now, they're wishing to obtain the area that was there. So instead of remediating one, we just draw new contracts, new temporary contracts, adjust the value. Everyone will have the space that they want or originally wishing and still seeking to purchase. So we're going to get them, and then we make them whole, make the proper corrections instead of maybe investing $60,000 to redo the walls of Doe Bake House, which are no longer needed because House 820 will be relocated where Artifacts is, and spend that money there to make them whole. It's just give them the spaces that they're wanting, build it out the way it's necessarily needed. So maybe it's not necessarily looked at as a capital improvement, but since we are technically in a way to not really sell it responsibly, and probably needs a lot more time to configure a proper purchasing agreement to allow these businesses to be made whole and operate in the spaces in which they are intended to buy in. In other words, instead of she's wanting Artifacts, she doesn't need to be here, the collective. We don't need to refix the collective. We need to gut that and make that for what Doe Bake House needs to be. So maybe that's not looked at as a capital improvement, but actually as a remediation, and then giving Doe Bake House the space in which they need to fully operate and to expand in. Same thing with House 820. And then just reconfigure the leases and honor their current parking leases so we can mitigate a proper conduct. I just really think the staff is going to need more time to. I like your suggestion, but I think the biggest thing, and Stephanie Madden had mentioned it, and I had the honor to visit all of the locations. We do need, and I think we all may feel we have a due diligence to make these businesses whole in the spaces that they wish to reside in and do business in. Some people know House 820 had already used a lot of additional capital improvement money to put in suites. So they're not needing $60,000 to put up more drywall where they're no longer going to be. That may follow what I'm saying here.
Well, I
new contracts, new spaces, and make them whole.
When you say contract, you mean new leases?
New leases, yes. In other words, it'd be new leases, maybe make them where they're a little beneficial. Maybe they're going to be acquiring, Doe Bake House will be acquiring approximately 5,000 more square feet. They may not necessarily want where the walls are at right now. He may be wanting, I don't need that wall there. So whatever he needs to remediate him, as well as the flooding they experienced. And then House 820, they're wanting to acquire the space Artifacts. So just rewrite these leases, guarantee them fair market value for the leased parking spaces until we can move down and approve a contract that's honoring to all. But I do think we owe due diligence to making them whole, making them operational so they don't need to experience another season of uncertainty and trying to do like House 820 be an event place, and then Doe Bake House staring at 5,000 square feet that they could definitely utilize.
That's what the plan is. So you certainly would change the lease proper as an addendum to the spaces that they're in, and then the remediation can take place. They already have a lease for those parking spaces for the next 6 years. So that's not going away.
No, my concern is for the public to understand that we would modify the leases for the spaces in which they desire to be in.
Which we would do anyway through the CRA.
Correct. As the CRA.
Right, as the CRA, yes.
I'm looking at Mike Rosart. Not that you sharpened your pencil and came in ready about the Heritage Garage, but similarly, I'm just curious, because to me, the parking is a big deal, and trying to, envision what that area becomes in 10 years is difficult. But it is my understanding that, like Heritage Garage, the parking, surface parking was part of that property. And when it was given as a part of the garage, condoing that out, did Heritage Garage pay, I think they pay in perpetuity for maintenance, but didn't they get the commensurate number of spots that they gave to the garage back as their possession inside the garage?
What we did was, Mr. Beck had it appraised, and that value was added to the total price of what it cost to build the garage, okay? Aspire is still paying a monthly lease.
Per space.
On those, right? So I've actually, I did that math when you guys were talking about it last meeting, and inquired about what it would cost to build a garage today. And it's $27,000 to $30,000 a space to build one today, without, just assuming that you own the land.
Winter Haven's 610 is 35,000. That's their number.
The people that are building it are going to sell it to them for $35,000 a space.
I understand.
Right?
I'm just
but the cost to build it is less. So I don't want anybody using 35 because that's higher. We're probably in the $30,000 range if you started today. Okay. Well, just quick math. If we need 150 spaces, if that's still correct as a number a while back, that's $5.25 million at 30. That's at 35. But if we use 30,000, that's $4.5 million that we'd have to borrow over 20 years. That's costing these businesses $192 per month per space. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. That's important for everybody to realize, is if you decided that you wanted to put a garage on this space, it may become untenable for these folks to be able to afford it. Because we'd have to get that amount of money out of those spaces if we wanted to build that garage and simply break even. That's assuming 4.5% interest rate, 20 years, the whole thing.
That's your other question.
So my question is, how, I'm trying to see, they need the parking. I mean, they can't not have the parking, we can't fence it off and not let them park there. We can't have, dedicated parking required for that, but it seemed to be that there were options in our land code to be more like the downtown area where it's not necessary for purchase of the property, like downtown.
Right.
You can buy a building, you don't have to have parking included, but you have to have access to some kind of parking. There has to be a garage nearby or $2 parking on the streets. So, that my main concern from the beginning is to try to think with the end in mind.
Right.
To the mass market area. How do we as a city envision parking? It's like we can't not think about that. It's essential to the businesses to flourish, is that there's available parking or predictable parking, whether it's a garage or you park on the street when you go there, however you do it. If House 820 has to say, I always have to do valet, that's a part of their package, because it's going to be putting them on the streets, around that neighborhood 10 years from now, because there's not going to be surface lots, because surface lots are going to be built into whatever. To me, that I feel like is the unanswered question. We can be hypothetical about a garage, but we are not even funding garages downtown where we need them, on the north side of, downtown. Now, when we actually would probably have a study tell us we definitely need another garage there at that side. But because of the cost, we're not. So to this imaginary, garage that we might need on this particular spot, it's not that I want to eclipse having a garage one day. I just need us because of the struggle of downtown parking. How long has it taken us to get predictability of parking? Where do people park when they go to our restaurants? When they go, how do we get the green light and the red light? Which lots and the squeeze? I mean, we've spent a lot of time on parking to make our downtown flourish. It doesn't seem like we've done as much due diligence on this area with regard to envisioning parking. And I only say that because, Sally and the Well, they're trying to pivot with their business plan with what the market is bringing, and it was more event space, but then that was thwarted because it was supposed to be an office space. Well, everyone who starts a business knows you got to be nimble, and this business you start isn't always the business that you end up on based on the market and based on your conditions. But we precluded that, so as a government agency, we're trying to invest in this neighborhood, but we're not business. And so there's the frustration, right? And we're not landlords, so there's the frustration. So these are not typical real estate deals, if you were like in real estate. These aren't typical businesses with contracts based on if you're a business, because there's strings attached, because you're getting a great deal to go into a blighted area. So we're trying to cut some of these strings and to set people free. We want it to be fair. We don't want the city to lose. But this is not like regular business. This is not like regular real estate. This is like, I got a brick building that hosts events. They got to park somewhere. Can we promise them that if they bought this brick building at a price that we could stomach and they could afford, as a city, are we going to say, oh, you bought the building, sorry, we're going to start fencing off lots and you can't park anywhere down there? That is what we cannot do. And so from the beginning, I'm not opposed to looking at that building, House 820, and saying, okay, with what they've invested, and they were first to the market, I feel $900,000 fair price based on like a real estate, like you would sell your house and you'd say, I wish I could get $2 million because I've put $750,000 in, and people go, well, I don't like the marble you picked, and I don't like the stuff you did, so I'm not paying your $750,000. I don't care what you put into it. I don't like it. I don't appreciate it. So it's not as much about, to me, these costs of rent reduction, future hurricane. If we look at these buildings and we think in our mind, what do we think is a fair price for that business? What have they invested to the quality of life and the safety and the aspect compared to what we've invested? What's a fair price for each individual plot? That's what I was hopeful that today we could take care of. Now, I know that parking is a big deal, but if my city can say, we are going to make sure they can park. How do we legally do that, Palmer? To say we're going to have, like downtown, they can park wherever, or we're going to let them have that surface lot for free for 10 years, and if and when there's a public need, just like we do with right-of-way acquisition for a road, we have to get that lot back for a garage, then there's something in the contract that says they're going to have to morph and be nimble, and if they can't pay for it at that time, they might have to sell their business to another user who doesn't need 120 spots. But we can't predict the future. We have a lot of cash into this, and a CRA functions best. Oh, and by the way, it's sunsetting in 2030. To reinvest and invest into more businesses, to build parking garage, to build another business on all these other lands that we've been assembling, in my opinion, is better than just holding the cash, hoping we get a better ROA sometime in the future, and then we're just letting this all kind of plateau here, and then we lose the momentum that we had before COVID that made all these spaces special.
Commissioner McCarley.
I appreciate and echo everything Commissioner Mann just said. In addition, I have a philosophical issue with hypothesizing about a parking garage that's non-existent while holding the people who want the buyers to a hypothetical idea that it just is contradictory to me. So we're telling the buyers, yeah, but this might be worth more later. We're going to amp up the cost on you and the price on you. But we're also going to hypothesize about a garage over here, but that's our prerogative as a government to say, well, we might want this land it just is counterintuitive to me, and it clashes. And I would have been happy to sign the agreement and do the deal 2 weeks ago when we first started talking about, just like Commissioner Matt, like let's go. These businesses are thriving, and why we want to put more hurdles in front of them when they were the front runners in the area, when they have committed to hiring people locally, when they have the neighbors organization is actually being the hands and feet and taking care of the most vulnerable and providing an option to our community that is a social service that a lot of other people don't want, to be really candid. But Brian steps up and says, I'll do it, and this is my calling, and this is what I want to do. I don't think we should be continuing to penalize. One of my questions of this legally is, we had an agreement. We had contracts drawn. We had discussions 6 months ago. I'm not really sure then when a consultant comes in and we use, yard on mass to reimagine, this area, that then we decide as a government, like, that's a good idea, let's put a parking garage there. That wasn't in the discussion. That was never in the discussion when we first started this process through the CRA with these businesses to draw up contracts. And I think the whole idea of CRA is for people to buy the businesses and buy the land. And so it isn't a miss. And so it isn't blight. It's because they are having skin in the game. So I'm more than frustrated that we are saying two different things out of the sides of our mouth as a government. And by the way, we're good at roads and we're good at stoplights and we're good at other things. We are not necessarily the best business people in the world to be brokering deals like this. And so I think, where we started 6 months ago historically, how we got here is just striking to me and a little frustrating. I want to see these businesses thrive. I want to sign these contracts. I want to do it based on, I think a lot of it was verbiage. I said this 2 weeks ago, that future improvements is a misnomer. These businesses have poured their heart and soul in fixing things. I got to visit the bakehouse the other day and see all the work they did to mitigate on a Friday over when the storm hit, to deal with all the storm water and, texting with Valerie and them working through all of that, which is commendable on both sides. It's just, I feel like we're in the twilight zone, and I just am having a hard time. It's just not palatable to me that we have gotten to this point, and now we're saying hypothetically there might be a garage. Well, there might be rainbows and unicorns on that piece of land in 20 years. I don't know, but that's hypothetical. But then, so I don't think we can apply hypotheses to future use for these businesses if we're trying to do it ourselves. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm again, unfortunately, but I would say to my fellow commissioners, I hope you take this to heart while I'm not here and in my absence, that I would have signed this deal weeks ago and help these businesses thrive, especially event spaces that, make the bulk of their money in the fourth quarter of the year. And I just feel like we have hamstrung them. And if we're going to be a business-friendly city, I don't think this is the way to do it.
Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it does bring us back to what are we trying to decide on Monday? Where does that, and if we can maybe zero in on that, that helps us at least know what the objective is overall. And I do think this is an example of why it's very difficult for a commission to try and parse out details and negotiate. And so the way that this has unfolded has not been ideal. And there are just questions throughout the process that we all bring into it, and opinions and visions. And so trying to settle that is extremely difficult. I would, Palmer, you mentioned that market loss, there's an offer for a straight purchase price. I think that's something that I would want that to go through you all to evaluate and bring to us, whether that's Monday or not. But just in terms of direction from me, that's only one. But I was interested, when you mentioned that. So, but for the other, I don't know. I don't know where on Monday, and again, Commissioner Music's not here, but he mentioned this the last time, there is an element of feeling like we have to make this decision now, where for some of us, there are still questions about this. Is this the right decision if we were to sell these businesses for the CRA? So yeah, I would ask us all, what is it that what are we trying to do on Monday?
Okay, so let me clarify some things. We are in a commission here. This is a CRA meeting. We are the people that are responsible to determine the value and approve. Staff's not making a recommendation. They're not going to.
Sure.
So let me finish. So as a result, we become that recommendation. We make that decision. It doesn't go to someone else, feed me what it ought to look like. It goes to the buyers telling us what they would accept. So forget being a commission right now, because we ain't one. We are a CRA without a staff recommendation because of a future protection of an unknown certainty, taking away a vital provision of an existing customer who's taken risk as part of the consideration that they can go to in a negotiation of purchase. Now, we have to all be grown-ups and decide either we let them buy those properties with the parking spaces as originally proposed, or in 8 years from now, 10 years from now, those parking spaces, that flat lot's going to have value. Those businesses might change. There can be something that happens. We're not smart enough, nor do we use crystal balls in this area to do this. We have to decide. No one's going to send us a document.
And all I mentioned for the market lofts, seeing that as a recommendation. And I hear you, and we are the CRA, but we have different opinions on what that looks like. And so that may,
So the CRA recommendation board made a unanimous opinion to approve it.
Yeah,
So that piece was done, and I was present as Commissioner Lund for that meeting. So we saw that approval take place. Without values applied, with and the commission that then converted to CRA in the last meeting approved applying the rent and applying the prepaid capital, what they've done today. So that's done. So now we, in simplification, have to simply get to the piece that is the future value, if any, that we want to provide. If it's for remediation only, that we can do. If it was beyond that, we can. And we have to have consideration for parking, that we make a decision of that they are willing to accept. Or they've got a lease. They don't have to do anything. And so for 6 more years, those parking spaces are theirs, and they can continue to use them. And that's about the time it would take, by the way, for us to get anywhere where we decided what to do with that space if we wanted to. Or we could provide, as a CRA, a recommendation to Palmer to create a contract that says these are the spaces that'll need to be required for X period of time by number by buyer. That we'll just have to make available. And they'd have to be willing to accept that. And some amount of reduction in purchase costs as a result. Nobody's going to do this for us. And I'll be gone, and you will still be the CRA. No, staff is not going to come to you with a recommendation because I have worked this hard on the inside. They don't have one. They don't want one. I shouldn't say they don't want one. They aren't going to create one. So we now need to really be a CRA like we are and ask the buyers, at least those latter two, what they'd like to do and what they'd be willing to take a look at. And that's what needs to come to us on Monday.
So just to focus the discussion and the decision a little bit more, I don't see the idea of leasing the parking areas to the tenants doesn't seem to really accomplish what we originally thought it would, given that we still would have that option to kick them out of that parking and force them to buy spaces in a parking garage. So really, I think the decision is whether you just renew their leases for the buildings and the parking spaces, or sell the buildings and sell the parking spaces. And then at some point in the future, if a parking garage materializes, you have the option of either condemning it through eminent domain to build that parking garage, or we could structure some kind of a deal where we have an option to purchase in the future at some kind of agreed upon appraised value.
Which gives everybody the flexibility they need to protect their interests, both the CRAs as well as the buyers.
So really, I think the distinction is between extending the current lease agreements or selling everything.
But to that point, if we go back in eminent domain, now you're kneecapping businesses. I mean, you're cutting them right off at the knee.
Well, look at how much eminent domain we do.
I agree with you. But now you're talking about firmly established businesses 6 years from now. I still think my strong opinion is that we need more time to develop that. It is my hope to hopefully somehow persuade my fellow commissioners that we need, no matter what happens here, these businesses need to be made 100% whole so they can be operational and get done. I mean, I understand why one approach was taken while they're trying to put things together. I get it. But if my strong opinion is we rewrite the leases, we let them have the parking space, and we start moving forward with a responsible approach, allowing them to purchase their properties and get the bank funding, because we are going to have to work through a lot more. But feel rushed to work through that, I don't feel comfortable with that at all.
Rushed wouldn't be the word. This started a year ago.
I understand that.
All right, so.
But it's before us now.
But leaders make decisions when other people have already done it.
It's before.
I get that. But to that point is.
We gotta be able to make a decision.
You're 100% correct.
Before us now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why it's before us now. Because we weren't making any decisions on it, and we weren't listening to the advice and the vote from the board meeting you and I both attend. And so we aren't the commission here. We are a CRA board. Don't think of your role as a commission.
I don't think of my role as a CRA.
Okay.
So as a CRA.
So, no, don't interrupt me. I'm talking. I can tell because my lips are still moving.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll remember that.
As a CRA, we have a responsibility to be able to recognize what was created in the beginning as an opportunity for risk takers to have the fruits of their reward allowing them to purchase businesses. This is not a business transaction per normal. This is a reward for gentrification, bad word maybe in some arenas, of an area so that we can establish value and future opportunities in that area. They have a lease that has parking spaces. They don't need a new lease for that. So their parking spaces exist. We only, if there's an addendum to leases, it's collective to Doe Bakehouse,
Correct.
and Housing 20. Those are addendums. Our responsibility for remediation is already existing, and so we need to do that. So now so none of those things are things we're talking about, except for what would they be willing to buy the businesses for if they were going to own the property, and that, to Palmer's point, is they get the building and the parking that they had as part of that, and that's what they buy. We just talk about item 3, the amount of the remediation, if there's anything beyond remediation that we want to do, and the deal is done, as long as they're willing to do that as buyers. Okay? For us to continue to kick this down the road after over a year of negotiations 6 months ago that they've been talking to bankers is irresponsible on our part. And we can be irresponsible and we can say, I need more information. And that's what staff has ended up saying. That's why you can't do a deal now. Because we don't know what the elements of the deal would want to be. And that's the problem. And we put 3 buyers, Brian excluded, we put 2 buyers in a position to have to make a decision on something that is moving around like an amoeba. And that's ridiculous. So I'd be interested in knowing what they'd be willing to accept, or keep them stay in their leases and we'll flip the addendums on them, be done for a day, and that's what this area decides. And I would encourage you not to say that what are we going to study more? What other elements are missing in this?
Well, it depends on which scenario we're looking at.
Right, well, so what would you want to see? You define a deal. Because you can't buy a car without knowing what you get for a trade-in.
Well, and, again, I go back to why it's difficult for the 7 of us to do that. I would counter and say it's not irresponsible. We're trying to be diligent and make sure we're making the right decision for the city. We all are in agreement of wanting to support these businesses and 100% for them. When we get into details, we have different visions or different opinions on what that looks like. And so I think we can disagree agreeably. I've never said I'm not for a sale. In the initial, when it was presented to me, I said I have questions about the future capital improvements. I know we're working through that. And again, Monday is really where a decision or not is made. We're studying the item now, but I don't know if you would want to ask if anybody wants to share from the business owners. But I just want to kind of refocus us, Mayor, that we can share a different opinion on this, and it may not. I wouldn't classify it as irresponsible. We're trying to make the right decision, and so I think we're closer than maybe we should, it seems.
My comment is it's irresponsible for us not to make a decision as a CRA. That's my irresponsible decision. This isn't going to be somebody else's decision. It's going to be our decision as a CRA. We've already had a unanimous approval to move forward.
But I feel like you're saying that the decision needs to be this, and so we may have a different feeling on what that is.
No. Yeah. I said I think there's 3 elements here.
Yeah.
There's 3 elements of decision. One is leases stay intact. 2 is we sell the property with the flat lots, the service lots that were included in the appraisals. 3 is we do a contract for parking that they'd accept, or whatever their 3rd option is of something they want to be. I don't know how many more options there can be beyond that. Do you?
That probably is correct.
Okay, so all I'm saying is that we get to one.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to make, yes, Commissioner Lalonde?
I'd say we hear from them.
Okay.
What's his name?
Kevin Shannon.
Thank you.
I just have one quick question to clarify. Did you say that there is a offer of full market for a building that you heard from Palmer?
Palmer, you mentioned a straight purchase.
That was for market neighbors.
Okay, so that's not for Homestead 20? Okay, just clarifying that.
That would freak you out.
No, you're good.
No, I did not say that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. That was all.
Clarify that as well.
Yeah.
Laura
Shannon, House Management. I think for me, where I'm sitting is we have been working on this for a long time. The emotion for me is still, I know that the urgency is hard to stomach for the commissioners because it does feel fast, but like all of you have seen that have walked through the space, the urgency is real for us to be able to move or be nimble. Sorry. In retrospect, I feel like me acting in good faith is to my detriment with the city, and I don't want to paint a bad narrative because, sorry, I gotta get myself together. I love the redevelopment of Lakeland, and I want to be part of it, but to go back and now say the best that we can offer you is a building and jeopardize the parking that is necessary for my business to operate. I cannot move the brand of House 820 somewhere else. The brand is the building. Those brick walls are what we do and what we offer. I can't say at the end of my lease, I'm going to take my business somewhere else. So if the decision is to not sell to us, to me, that feels like there needs to be a recognition in that remediation of the building that you are not just replacing a $60,000 worth of drywall. You are replacing what I had by contract in Artifact or in the collective and moving it into Artifact. Does that feel like the best use of the city's money? I don't know, and I can't make that decision. But I think for me, the hardest part for me is knowing what we have walked through and what Diana and David and Brian and I have walked through in all of these meetings, feeling like we are moving forward step by step in good faith with the city. And again, I don't want to paint a bad narrative. I love the city. I love the staff. I'm so thankful for the way that they have supported me for 7-8 years. I mean, that's the nature of the CRA is we have loved hosting them and being an advocate for them, but it does feel like if the staff can't make a decision, how do I explain the business loss that we've had? How do I absorb that? How do I absorb the attorney fees of trying to work this deal for the past year on top of hurricane loss? I don't know. So I would, on the side of understanding that a parking garage could go in there someday, I want to be a team player and I want to be at that table saying, let me help, let me host it, let me be part of that. And if you take it away, the business fails. And that's nuts and bolts for me. I can't. I would love to be able to take cookies and go put them somewhere else, but I can't. And I want Diana to expand. She has no reason that she needs to stay, and I know she wants to. My lease is technically up in August of 26. So for the past year, I have been working with staff to try and figure out, can I promise our clients that are booking a year and a half out a building, and I haven't been able to. And in the beginning of 25, it was okay. A year and a half out was middle of next year, which is still within my lease. I am now at the end of 25, looking at the 26 being around the corner, and I can't book past my lease with my clients. There's not a building for me to offer by contract right now. And it's not even a whole building that I'm trying to offer. So I would just appreciate for staff to understand that business loss. And there's an auto renewal that I can opt into in April if I want to, and I understand that. But how am I, if you were in my shoes, how would you accept an auto renewal of a lease when you've been in my shoes for the past year and a half in the situation that I've been? So I think that's all I've got, unless you guys have any questions.
If you were looking at the elements on that screen, what's important to you?
I think for me, in the discussions that we've had, I think we know what it would take for us to be able to personally make the deal happen. If you're going to take base rent or business loss, they're about equal. So that doesn't really matter to me. Whether it's a base rent credit or a business loss acknowledgement, they're about equal. I think the previous capital, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the base rent and the previous capital investments are already approved.
Okay.
So they're in.
Previous capital investments feel important. And then for us, we know that the remediation cost is much higher. Our 544 number that we gave you, we've shared that proposal with anybody that's asked for it. That number is the true number of replacing what we had in Artifact into the collective, or I'm sorry, from collective into Artifact. And that is absolutely necessary for us to be able to do it.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Diana?
Hi, Diana from Doe Bakehouse. If you ask me the same question, what would be important for us? It's the parking, mostly. So if we could just make the first deal that we had the contract with for both lots, whatever was initial. We also brought a contractor inside to check what had happened inside the collective and what would be the price to just rebuild what was lost with the water, and it's about the $60,000. So we are okay with that credit for remediation, and we could move forward with the deal.
Okay, so could we, any questions for either of them? Anything else you want to ask? I apologize if I was too harsh, sir. I don't want us to not take responsibility for what is our responsibility, that's all. And act like this is going to become a staff recommendation. That's what I want to circle and underline. So I would recommend we take their two comments, put them on a sheet, a bulleted sheet that they agree on and approve, and send those to us today or on Saturday, so that we have that as at least a basis for discussion when we get to this point on all three of them.
More like a purchase offer.
So it's like a purchase offer that they agree on, at least for us to be able then to entertain those discussions. Yes.
Okay, so I'm kind of looking at Palmer for this because it sounds like, Commissioner McCarley is amenable to a sale. She's not going to be here. There's no way to get her vote outside of her being here Tuesday. Okay, so then that means we need 4 votes. And so I'm just a pragmatist. I think I'm the only one on the dais counting my votes every time.
We just want to say it out loud.
Please say how you're going to go so we know that what we're happening. So it sounds like the mayor and I would move forward with the purchase. And then to me, the only next best thing would be just the lease, just lease, get them back to order. The problem is most severe for House is that they can't not make some improvements. So then that's going to cost the city money. That's, to me, it's like, oh yeah, let's just go back to the happy lease. If that was as easy as it was, we would all be doing that. The thing complicating it is it can't go back to the happy lease because of the hurricane. So I don't know what my commissioner colleague here wants to do on his last meeting on Monday. But is it just the mayor and I who would move forward with the purchase on Monday?
If you want me to speak blunt, I would love to find a way to work a deal, but the mayor's even said it himself. You sell it now, me personally, I think it's irresponsible to sell it at these value prices. I understand our importance and our role as a CRA. I have the pleasure of serving on that board, not as long as he has. But we also are still governed to be good stewards of money, and I want to be good stewards to these businesses as well. I own a business. I understand mitigating losses. I've been hit by the hurricane. I had flooding. I just lost a garage door this last week. That was $7,000. Had a forklift go through a piece of cement. That was $2,500. I get it, and I know that he gets it as far as when things have to move. And I understand that you understand business, but I'm talking about when things break, no one's coming and saying, let me fix it for you. Well, that comes right out of your profit. Yeah, I understand that, but let's also be blunt and be honest. They went 11 months and it should have already been fixed, if we're going to be blunt and honest. You know, we're sitting here talking about stormwater and raising rates and stuff. You want to know who was affected by that stormwater? The businesses that.
So the bottom line is, you would rather us just pay for
think,
these improvements and keep them leasing?
To even the mayor's point.
I just.
Whether it is now.
Cut to the chase.
You want to count a vote. I'm going to tell you where my vote is. If it stands the way it is right now, I would be a no vote. Do I think something could come comparable out of this? Yeah. Sooner or later, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, that business is going to double, triple, as I hope it does.
Okay, you're saying no vote, but you would be for just going to the lease. Like, you got to be a yes for something, so you'd be a yes on.
I'm looking long-term like my business would and like their business.
And this is not our numbers, because we're taking the parking valuation out.
I understand that, but you take the parking evaluation out, and we come in 10, 15 years now, and now let's say they're doing $1 million worth of doing a business. They're blowing out the seams. They're knocking business as they should be doing it.
We don't get that money that long. Guy, this is a different deal. It's not just like the Lake Electric building that we can sell.
Now I'm going to tell you that. Let me finish.
Yes, and I should be stopping one of you, so I apologize.
So what I'm trying to say to you, we either find a way to deal with it now, much to his point, or we're going to kneecap them later on when with that parking garage dug up. Someone's getting kneecapped either way, the way it sits now.
We're trying to deal with it. I'm just saying.
We're wanting to deal with it.
That's all I want to know. It's like out of the options.
Well, then that should have been the question that's asked. If it was me, I would write a contractual agreement, restructure their leases, make them 100%. I would build her out exactly the way that she needs to be built out, even if it did cost us more money. Even if it did cost us more money, I would build her out so she is 100% fully functional. I'd make sure they are remediated and stuff so they can get it, and I would extend their leases and I would make sure that we made a proven plan that we are looking wholeheartedly each and every single day on a way to make a way for their parking to exist 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 down the road. I operate in the exact same business that they do. I may not own the space, but believe me, I've delivered to this space. I love their space. For me to sound like I'm against them, that's a horrible thing to say.
I don't think you're against them. I'm just trying to get you a decision.
No, but I agree with you, and I'm not saying that. I get that.
I just want a decision.
All right, well, sometimes we get more than what we ask for.
So may I make a recommendation that at least you'd be willing to take a look at this revised for consideration on
Doesn't sound
Monday?
like he wants to sell at any price, only lease and do the improvements. So what about you, Chad?
No.
Let me ask you a question. Is it something would you evaluate purchase options?
For discussion on Monday, if there were some, and
if they were reasonable, I mean,
okay.
like right from the get-go, I was sort of against all the rent, but,
Right. So at least you'd evaluate, correct?
I would always evaluate everything.
Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian Seeley may want to say something, but I did have a comment to Commissioner Madden's question. I don't know. To counting votes, you can put me in that. I don't know, but I am always willing to consider an updated purchase offer and see what that looks like.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to advocate anything beyond that, okay? I'm just suggesting that nobody else is going to do this for us. If I'm being harsh on a semifinal agenda study, it's because this probably wouldn't have even happened otherwise.
And you understand the CRA best.
And I was on the original. So I would love to see us do what we need to do as here, and it's a different role than a commission. It's a completely different role. And it isn't a business decision like we would necessarily hope to be selling our own property, which this is the city's property. But that's because there was a total different intent, and the tax valuation that's going to come out of this over time, we're not even talking about, which is extremely important to the city, not just their properties, but everybody else around them. And that means, by the way, I say all of everything I've said that's any causticness in it at all. So grateful for the staff that I get to serve with. So thankful for Brian's leadership. So thankful for Valerie's leadership. So thankful for our complete city manager's team, from Sean to Rob to Ashley. I can't imagine having a city that works more conscientiously than this as a staff. We put staff in a bad position. And so our job is to take staff out of that position And so if there's anything that is less patient in me that has been communicated in an unkind way, I apologize to anyone who may have been offended by it, but I want you to know I'm a strong advocate that we finish our business. That's all. All right, anything else? Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner.
Now, this has been a real dilemma we've had for a long, long time. It's unfortunate. And of course, I'm more of a real estate guy.
Right.
And I have been for all my life.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but it's still, the facts are the facts, and the things are the way they are. I kind of agree more with Mr. Lalonde on the most part about some leases and stuff like that, but I want them to have their building. There's no question in my mind. I want them to have their building. And I look back from the citizen's perspective at what number is a fair number for them to get it, and us to have got chastised for our lifetime, because we've made bad decisions in the city in the past, and if city commission's been fired and all kind of stuff has happened in the years past, and we don't want that to happen to this group. And it's a hard dilemma. You know, we're in a bad situation, and it's not your fault. It's more our fault than anybody else but it's a tough one, and of course but I'm leaning more this way, but again, that's not going to say that you're not going to be the right decision for us if you make a recommendation too. And you know, it's a juggling question right now until it comes up, I guess, Monday. We're going to have to make a decision of what we're going to do, and I hope it will satisfy them, satisfies the citizens of Lakeland, and the CRA is we don't have to go through these things. Some more affirmative information should have been gotten to begin with, but that's my decision. I think everybody has made a good decision at this point. It may not have been at the right timing, but invariably I feel that's correct. And Sarah, I wish you could be here. Mike may not be here either. I'm not sure who's going to be here.
Mike will be back
Monday, but there's going to be some decisions to be made, and it may not go the way we want to go. Farmers parking lot is critical in my opinion. And I want them to own the building as well. And at whatever number it is, it's you know, if you want to give it to them, give it to them. But I want to know what it is.
We don't have, no, we're not going to do that.
I know that. But I'm just saying, you know, if that's what you all decide.
That we are the y'all.
Right. But, and of course, it's just tough, and we've made a lot of decisions, a lot of verbiage going around, and somebody's going to, tomorrow, is going to be going to say, let's do this, we're going to go yes, or we're going to do this, but not do that, so we're going to have to, it has to be a multiple prong build to vote. It can't be just all or nothing. I think some initial proposals they had made, I didn't like them, and I'm hoping they're willing to shift that a little bit. I think the vote has gone that way. We're going to make a little bit of modification in some of those leases and stuff like that. But it's a tough decision for everyone, and I think we've all struggled with this. And unfortunately, Sarah's not going to be here on next meeting that we're going to have to make a decision on. And so.
Mr. Seeley, I know you want to make a comment, so if you would just introduce yourself, please stand up.
Hello, my name is Brian Seeley. I'm the tenant over the market lot. Can I hand this out?
Yes. Thank you for waiting.
Wish you could go do the deal.
I guess I could just do that and pass it down.
Thank you so much. Yeah, go to a funeral.
Oh, he's got it. All right.
Appreciate it.
So the reason I've kind of of put together a proposal and have handed out to you is you really kind of just demonstrated why. Like you guys were very focused on House 820 and the big house because of the parking dilemma, which I totally understand. That is not an issue for my purchase. I've been listening to y'all. I've heard the feedback on feeling as though the incentives are too much and that sort of deal. What kind of precedent does it set? That's another reason that I kind of just developed this proposal is it doesn't include any incentives. It's just an offer, and it is asking for direction on if this doesn't feel appropriate to you, then, you know, what does? And let's go ahead and move forward with a deal that we all feel comfortable with. Another reason that I'm choosing to do this is in the agenda for Monday, in the asterisk next to 310 Plum Street, it said that they were recommending to extend a lease with me. And that because they don't know that the incentive, which you guys approved, will still be valid once you've determined what you're going to do with House 820 and DOU Bakehouse. So essentially, kind of dismissing that as a thing that was confirmed or calling it into question. And I'm prepared to move forward with the purchase, so I'm not really interested in, extending a lease. I've been in this process now for a year and a half or more, maybe. The properties have been subdivided to purchase. So I appreciate the city's staff's willingness to do a lease with me, but that's really not, what I'd like to. I'd like to move forward with the purchase. I'm prepared to do so. What up here, I don't have any previous capital investments. I have made previous capital investments. The deal that we had approved unanimously at the CRA meeting was, good. And I didn't feel the need to, add previous capital improvements to that deal. But I can. I could show you estimates of things that I've done, and even I have record of some of the things that I've done above and beyond my lease for previous capital improvements. If you wanted to see that, I provide it to the CRA. So I have had some of that. The value of the apartments are what they are. My proposed purchase price is $1,056,000. It's approximately 20% below the appraised value. This accounts for my desire to maintain affordability there. This would allow me to do that. It also would give me some wiggle room with the bank to be able to do some of the improvements I'd like to do. We have a boiler there from 1994 still. Everything in those apartments are from 1994. And that's outside of what I'd like to do as far as preparing the other space to serve people as well. So I'm accounting for all that, for the contribution I made over the last decade there. And I'm asking for you to consider the proposed purchase price. However, if you don't deem it appropriate, I would like to know what you do, and I'm prepared to move forward with a price that you guys determine.
So you would like us to use this illustration in the 3 proposals that we put together to send back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
All right, we will do that.
Because it's I don't have the same, some of these other things that you guys are dealing with, and it's I'd like to
Perfect.
do that.
Anything else?
There's a question.
Oh, yes. Commissioner Lalonde.
Yeah. I want to commend you.
Thank you.
This is very well worded and very well done. And I like this.
Excellent.
I like this. I would live with that.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ruiz, who has been very, very patient, by the way.
Very patient. Yes.
Well, I'm more than willing to not speak at all, but I need to clarify a couple of things.
Okay.
One is with regard to Commissioner Madden's comments about the CRA investing additional monies in the buildings were they to be leased, repaired, remediated, altered, and built out to meet a particular occupant, whether that's a tenant or a buyer's occupancy. That they're really, but for the disparity between what it might cost the CRA to do the exact same work that the tenant buyer would do, to the degree the commission were to grant credit consideration against the sale price, it's a distinction without a difference, because the CRA then is essentially funding the improvements, repairs, remediations, alterations. So whether they're coming out of pocket, CRA, to make the changes, or they are seeing a sale price credited for those things, the CRA is paying, either way. To Brian's proposal, and this applies to all three, do not sell at below appraised value.
Right.
So Brian's offer of 1.056 million, if you are to get there, do it with credit for the build out that he wants to perform, the improvements and the additional 4 units, so that the sale price remains the appraised value. And I'll tell you why. Because you will do a disservice to the values of all the other properties in the mass market area and surrounding neighborhoods by selling at below appraised value. You want to start there, and if you must, decide what level of credits for base rent, for prior improvements, and for future improvements and repairs and remediations is appropriate to land at the net proceeds to the seller in a transaction like that. But in all 3 scenarios, please let that sale price at the top be the appraised value.
Okay. Excellent. Both inputs. Anything else at all?
Not for me.
Okay. Anything from you?
No, I mean, I think we can bring a table like this for different properties on Monday with different scenarios, one where, what's there now with the parking garage impact, eliminate the parking garage, and just assume you're going to sell them, have a different, I know there's a $60,000 future credit for house. She mentioned 540 or so. We can show you both of those scenarios and what that does to the bottom line. So you can at least see the implications of the various different approaches.
And you'll get us that this weekend, so we have it for this weekend. And on our finance director's part, any comments with respect to disposition and the CRA?
No, I mean, everybody's still rowing in the right direction, cleaning up the blight. And I mean, what these folks have done now versus what it was and what it could have been is 180 degrees. So it's really just, I say it all the time, but it's just math. That's what it comes down to. Whether it's the base rent, whether it's, but I think what you're going to land on is what the parking number, the parking credit, or do you sell the property? That's where your nexus is. That's what's going to get you guys to the finish line, is what's the dollar transaction amount that's going to get the no's to yeses.
So to his point, you've got to know if you took a parking lease or a parking agreement in lieu of the service space for the numbers of spaces you think you need, what would that have to look like to you to be able to know that at the termination point of that, what you are going to do with, that you're going to be in a position where you have to talk about negotiating with being in a garage or what might ever be developed at that point in time and finding spaces for that. That has to work into your willingness or not. In which case you may not want to purchase it that way.
Or you could do what Commissioner McCarley was talking about, is because you don't know where that parking garage is going to end up in that area. What if you craft something in there that says, you're going to buy your spaces for X amount with us to be able to purchase them back at some point, some future commission that may be 20 or 30 years from now, can buy them back with an accommodation of some sort that they would be able to occupy at some rate, right? It's an option.
And they'd get first right of refusal if they
whatever you guys come up with, but I think that's what's going to get you guys to a landing spot on Monday.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out if we need to order lunch.
Let's order it. Let's do it.
You probably need to order dinner.
You know what? That's okay if it is, because leadership takes courage, as you know.
I just get hungry.
Yeah.
Let's make sure nobody gets hungry.
That's right.
That would be my
And it
recommendation.
takes time. And it's okay. And how we get together, how we get to a place together matters. And nobody's voice is being disrespected here. It's just a willingness to get it done and to consider what we need to do to be strong. Or walk and say, this is, whatever I'm saying here, I can't in good conscience vote for it. I'm all in on that. But doing nothing is where I want to go back to being irresponsible. And that's the only place I want to point in that. I want us to work in a responsible way. Commissioner Matt?
So I feel like I'm totally in agreement with everything you said. I'm so grateful for all of your clarification. And to me too, that's the spirit in which I'm approaching this, like to get to the decision. I know we have a lot of feels and we have a lot to express, but they leave, and if it's a no on what's presented, then they are in the same morass that they've been in. So my goal is not to just count votes to get a yes for what I want. It is, we have to figure out a yes to something.
Yeah.
So if it is, I think it's incumbent upon y'all to come with your favorite lease agreement on Monday as well, because that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
If my colleagues cannot get to a yes on then they leave, and then they don't know if there's the repairs. They don't know. So we can feel great about all those things, and I know your passion for that. But that doesn't help them know where to go after Monday. So that was my clarification, is not to care about any of our feelings or to get everyone online. I'm just trying to assess so that Monday they come with I either am leaving with a lease and improvements, or I'm leaving with a sale that is palatable, something. Like you need to know that of the three things that we can get 4 votes for yes for something. That is the thing, and it didn't seem like we were coalescing on anything in particular, and that was the frustration for me.
Commissioner Lamont.
Well, I will add to that. So I believe we're all in agreement to that. My number one goal is to ensure that these businesses, no matter how it works out, that they are successful. I may be not aligned on certain things, but believe me, I feel every aspect and every pain, and I've gone through many of those, some of them this week. And I get that. So I think we're all in agreement. They took the risk. Whether we agree all the numbers and stuff, I agree to what Commissioner McCarley said, have 2 views. No matter what, you're walking out of here with something because you need to thrive. You need to grow. You need to expand. I did cheat. I tried one of your cookies. It was great. You know I love your space. We use it. So we want you to be made whole. I just want to say, I know that I'm sort of the antagonist here. I'm trying to be a business-minded guy, but at the same point in time, I want them to be honored, want them to be respected, but more so in all, I want to see them grow 3 times in what they are. I want her to be booked out 2 years in advance, where they're like, I'm so sorry, I can't have you. No, I'm not open until January of this. That's her goal. That's his goal. And that's where they need to be. At no matter what expense, if we need to remediate.
Right.
The other thing that Brian made a good point about the appraisal, because of course in the media, the reason when people are justifying, should you give base rent, should you give these capital future improvements that we all thought was like buying them luxury items in their new space, that's the thing that looks like you're giving stuff away for free. And so we really needed that clarification. I don't think it does us any good politically to be able to say, it still looks like we're giving this huge discount. But in my mind, I've purchased property, commercial and residential. And at the end of the day, we come to a price that's palatable for both sides. And it's not, we don't at the end of the day go, well, gosh, they didn't really pay, I had the inspection done, I needed all these things, I use that as leverage to get my price down. I may or may not have to get those things done, but they actually do have to get these things done, and it's actual cash for them to have to invest into the property. But it looks like they're just getting this deal and we're giving it away, when it's written with the purchase price like this. So we're dealing with the political issue of how it looks and how much we're giving away. You're dealing with an improvement of the area and the property values issue. So we need to see why we have 2 different goals here on how we phrase it and what we market here on our pricing.
Well, it's why I used the phrasing distinction without a difference. The end result is the same. To the buyer, to the tenant, to the public that will evaluate your decision, because the bottom line at the very end of the transaction will end up in whatever place you decide it needs to be. But the impact to the comps in that area will be dictated by the sale price.
Right.
Well, but this looked simpler and more palatable when you go, oh, they've offered me a figure for a price that's appraised at a certain thing. I can now know, do I want to go down that 20%? I am not saying, oh my gosh, we shouldn't give rent away. Then the next time we'll have to give rent away. We shouldn't build out their space because next time we have to build out their space. Do you see the difference of just knowing we are doing a real estate deal and what we're willing to give or take versus what we're setting a precedent for as a government?
I do, and it's why I explained how to get there, if you want to get there, in a way that won't negatively impact other properties and values in the area. That was all.
Right,
I wasn't taking a stand on credits or
and
amounts.
And I show the settlement statement to get to my deal.
Right. I feel like singing Kumbaya right now.
And have a contract, the price.
Okay, anything else on this at all before we go to item E? Thank you all for being here, and you can stay.
I just got one more thing. I just want to add to what she said. The proposed price there is a higher cash to city than what was presented in that. I just feel that's important.
You were being generous in the process.
You're all being generous.
Yeah, we're restating this.
I get it. I just want to clarify that.
Thank you very much.
It's not exactly.
Anything else?
You want to change
things around? Anything else? Anybody? No, not anybody. Anyone on the CRA would like to express? Chad? Okay. You heard? Okay, thank you, sir, because you are, and I would not want to risk not having you know that that's true. Okay. And again, anything that was offensive in my comments, I apologize for. My goal in this is to just be as insistent as I hope we can be together. And so we'll see how we end that on Monday. We have a very important last CRA consideration, and that's item E, which terminates the acquisition and redevelopment of Onyx.
Yeah, another challenging CRA issue for you here. Back in May of 2022, the CRA and the city entered into a redevelopment agreement with Onyx to develop the Oak Street parking lot. Patrick, I'm not sure if there's a photograph of the, okay, well, I think y'all know where it is. Just east of McKill downtown. It's approximately 150 space parking lot. Under that agreement, they were going to develop multifamily retail office mixed-use development. They were to close within 12 months of the effective date of that agreement, which was in May of 2022. However, the agreement did provide them several different extension options. They were allowed 2 free 30-day extension options. And then if they wanted to exercise extensions of the closing date subsequent to that, they would have to pay $10,000 for each 30-day extension. They have, with the 2 free ones, now requested 20 different extensions of the closing date. They've made $10,000 payments. However, they stopped making those $10,000 extension payments on December 9th of 2024, so approximately a year ago. They met with staff, I think the last time was in May of 2025, and expressed continued interest in developing the project, but there were significant modifications that they needed to make. They have not made any extension payments after that meeting either, so the last extension payment was about a year ago. So to date, we have $180,000 in extension payments that are sitting with the escrow agent. This is their $25,000 initial deposit, so $205,000 in deposit. We haven't heard anything from them in quite some time, I believe. Valerie, you correct me if I'm wrong, but so it's staff's opinion that we need to cut the tie here and move on with probably a new RFP when that's appropriate. So that's staff's recommendation. I think that the developer is aware of this action and plans to be here on Monday to address it.
I will tell you, I met with them as well in May and modified the recommendation, saying come back to us with a reduction in parking so that the numbers work for you. They would agree that they would get that done. I have never received a thing. And so, as well as they've never made any additional payments. And we talked at that time about the fact get caught up on payments, at which time they indicated they would. So there has been a non-response. And we originally met with them with the warmest of regards, because we really thought that they were a perfect fit for what we were going to try and accomplish there. They were cooperative in terms of some of the changes made. We pushed to get some affordable housing pieces in those units, as you recall. We extended TIF generously and in terms of the payout offer. So this is a non-performance that I feel we have been very disappointed by and surprised by because of their Tampa presence and some of the other work that they've done otherwise. And may be very good reasons for them internally with respect to their business, but they have not performed contractually to what they said they would do.
And I think what you're going to hear on Monday is they're going to say, we've been continuing to work on this, but the contract requires $10,000 payments every month, and we have not received those. So they've been working at their risk at this point. If they have been, I don't know.
Mr. Roos.
You will likely hear what Palmer just described, and you will also likely hear details about the impact of interest rates and market forces and things on the development program to their assertion that they can't make the deal work that is in the agreement that they agreed with and executed in May of 2022, to change the details of that agreement materially by removing significant numbers of parking spaces that were essentially the first requirement when we advertised now twice for proposals, were that the 150 roughly spaces that are on the Oak Street surface parking lot right now have to be replaced and provided back to the public in a structured parking scenario. They agreed to that. They're now saying that it can't be done, that the math will not work. And that's fine. That may not be inaccurate, but either way, we can't just agree to change the agreement to that without re-advertising for new proposals so that all the other developers who might have an interest and might be able to bring the deal breaker details of this proposal project to bear would be cut out of that and would have a legitimate, if not legally legitimate, objection to us amending it without re-advertising it.
Let's hear Member Lalonde.
Yes, so your recommendation is to terminate this and then we will keep the deposits?
That's would be our right under the contract, yes. So.
That's all I need to hear.
Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. If we reissued the RFP, are we planning the same one that we did several years ago, or did we take that? I mean, what is that process?
I'm sure we will take into account our experience through now 2 rounds. But there is an inherent level of risk in this that when we advertise and we get proposals, they'll be based on what developers know at the time. And a lot of it is outside of their control and ours. But that's, sort of the risk they run. And in communication with Onyx was additional investment that they have made since December of last year without having gotten formal closing deadline extensions that require those $10,000 monthly payments. Was awfully risky on the part of the developer.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner McCarthy.
I'm trying to remember, did they do another project in town or no?
No.
These are, okay.
This was it.
That's all I thought. And it's just been,
Yeah, they are.
I mean, it's one of those things that it sounds too good to be true. When we first, it didn't sound too good to be true, but, market.
It's changed.
Things change and, just like COVID and so things change all the time, but y'all have been we have all been gracious and hoping they would.
Extremely gracious.
I agree. I think the extension of time and consideration and even come back to us with something that does work and getting nothing back. And they have a contractual responsibilities. Developers know that. That's part of the risks. And you walk away from some of those things sometimes saying it's cheaper for us to walk away. And I think it will probably be that for them, and we'll give them the opportunity to certainly represent whatever they want to say on Monday. Anything else on that one? Okay, we cease it as a CRA and back to the commission meeting where we have Ashley performing her role brilliantly in light of the absence of her contemporaries.
Okay, so the first item is for the approval of the 2025 Report of Local Affordable Housing Incentives. This is a report that's required by the Florida Housing Finance Corporation in Tallahassee each year. It has been approved by the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee of the city, and it needs to be approved by the commission. Its importance is that it helps to fund the SHIP program, the State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program, and those are the funds that provide housing for families at or below 140% of the area median income. So it's a required report.
Mike, anything on this for us? You've been so patient. I hate to have you sit here. Not have-
Mike Smith, Housing Programs Manager. The only thing was there was no recommended changes from our from the incentives that we reviewed, the 11 incentives. There were some comments on just tracking the legislative session upcoming with some of the things that got pulled last year that I think will come back up this year. So I did take note of that. And also, one concern that has been come up the last couple of years is the rising impact fees. So right now we have the means to, with our incentives, to kind of offset that. But we are looking at potentially maybe some changes in the future as those continue to increase. But right now, there's no recommended changes. So we're good with what we're doing now.
Just a quick question. What is our AMI right now, like as of today?
The area median income, we'll get a new update in April, but I think it was for a family of four, it was 67,000. I think it was 67,500. So we based it off of that. It'll go up a little bit in April. And then we'll make our adjustments based on that.
And just a quick kudos, I had personal, like contractual people I was working with at my home for something, and one of whom works in the real estate industry, and I told Teresa Mayo this a couple weeks ago, but Mike Smith, you helped one of their clients do something over with housing in Orlando. There was some kind of issue with one of the vendors, and they could not speak more highly of Mike and Teresa and the team here at the City of Lakeland of helping with that issue, and I just wanted to say that publicly too.
Wonderful. You're another perfect example of our great staff, and we're so thankful for you. You do a marvelous job. All right, that brings us to B, which is in the purchase order.
Yes, this is the purchase order with the redesign group for hardware upgrades and extended support of the virtual server infrastructure. The IT department received a proposal from the redesign group for the city's virtual server infrastructure, VxBox. VxBox is the hardware platform that hosts most of the city's servers. By extending the support, the city will save approximately $500,000 annually over replacing the entire system. The total estimated cost of the tier contract is $1,064,054. And this would be utilizing NASPO Value Point Cooperative Purchasing Program.
And for clarity purposes, she said VX Block, not VxBox. So I don't want them to think we're playing any games in the IT department. Great. Any questions on that? Wonderful to see it saving money. But by the way, that then takes us to item C, which is consent. And do you want to leave item A on consent? All right, yes. So let's go to C.
Okay, so item C is the approval of change order with Strawn Trout for 7 Wetlands Education Center project. The change order is for $10,372. The original contract with Strawn Trout included schematic design services, design development services, construction document services, administration services. The original contract was $96,782. This change order is for site planning and permitting expenses, which includes incorporating Polk County utilities requirements for fire and potable water supply lines, fire flow calculations, and gopher tortoise information onto plans. The funds have been budgeted in the fiscal year 2026 budget, and those funds are actually being paid for by a grant from FDEP that was awarded in 2023.
Any questions on this at all? Leave it on consent? All right, good. Next, D.
Okay, so this next one, there's a little more to it. It's a task authorization with Atkins Realis for design, permitting, and construction services for Phase 1 construction for the Southeast Quadrant water main extension at Lakeland Linder International Airport and corresponding appropriations. The southeast quadrant water main extensions extends the water main into the southeast quadrant of Lakeland International Airport. And it also will replace a 6-inch water main line along Airside Center Drive and upsize it to a 12-inch water main. And they will complete the loop system and enhance fire flow. This task authorization with Atkins Realis is for $231,900. And it's basically for the design, permitting, and construction phase. It includes bidding services and inspections. So the task authorization with Atkins Realis is under the city's continuing contract for professional engineering and consulting services. So part one is the task authorization. Part two is about the appropriation of funds. We're seeking the appropriation of funds from water utilities for the construction of phase one. And the scope of work will be completed under a task authorization with Register Construction Engineering, and that is for the construction of the line. And that's, again, for $230,000. And it's utilizing the continuing contract with Register Construction Engineering. And the other part of the request is the appropriation from funds for water utilities. The total amount, which includes the amount for Register to construct, and it includes the amount for Atkins Realis for design and permitting, is for $461,900. So that's the total amount of appropriations. So that's for both task authorizations. One task authorization with Register was already approved, and the second one is the one we're asking you to approve from Atkins Realis in this agenda item. So the $461,900, basically that amount of money the Lakeland Linder International Airport will reimburse water over a 10-year period with a 4% loan. The total amount of that is $369,140. And then the other portion will be paid by water utilities in the amount of $92,760. So we are asking the commission to authorize and authorize the task authorization for Atkins Realis and appropriate the funds from the corresponding appropriations listed on page 2. And if you want me to go over the 3 appropriations, I will, but they're all from water utilities.
Okay, are there any questions on that? I have a question on why you do, on a financial basis, Mike, for why we allocated overtime on payback to the airport. I mean, it's our property.
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with this one.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Chris Walter, Director. So actually, because of the development, can you go back a slide, please?
Sure.
Because of the development coming off of here, out of the right-of-way, and then around, oops, sorry, I touched it. We're creating this development, and we have a lot of the spots already sold or leased. So that's for our infrastructure from here down to the lift station that's down here, the station that's down here. That would be through the maintenance fund of water utilities, I believe is how they're paying for that. But because this is for our infrastructure for our development, we're paying it. And frankly, it's a loan, right? We're paying it back over time as a loan, just like any other internal loan would be.
And they're not because of common maintenance fees or other things that you're applying to those lessees?
No, like some of the lessees, they are paying essentially like what we would call in a city like an impact fee or hookup fee or something like that to us. We've done that to help us kind of offset some of the infrastructure costs, but it'll be nowhere near the cost of the infrastructure.
Okay, got it. Any questions? All right, thank you very much for that. Item E.
One ordinance for first reading, that is annexation of a piece of property into the boundaries of the Lakeland Area Mass Transit.
Before you go, was item E, that was E?
No, there's one.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. There's one right.
Okay, so item E is an amendment to a contract with Atkins Realis for professional engineering services. This is for Taxiway A shoulder project. at Lakeland Linder International Airport. The amendment to the contract is for $458,653. And it's for the addition, the taxiway A1 is a 30-foot wide paved shoulders. And it's between runway 523 and taxiway A1. And the amendment includes bidding and support and construction phase services and resident project representation services. The reason this amendment is coming before you now is because the city received an additional grant from the FAA for this project. And so the total cost and the existing contract was for $1,009,140, bringing the total amount of the project to $1,467,793. And so we are recommending approval of the amendment to the contract with Atkins Realis.
Okay, questions? Yes, Commissioner Lalonde.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand. Maybe Chris can speak to it. It was $1 million, but then we got a grant, so the price went up. Is that because we're adding the?
Right, so, once again, Chris Alstern, Airport Director, what happened is normally when we get our grants from FAA, they're like one grant that covers design, bid services, and construction. And then the bid, which is coming up next, the contract to build the actual physical project out. But what happened was there was two, so design was alone, standalone, all by itself. And now we're adding which we selected in the RFQ process, the bid services and the construction oversight services. That means there's somebody out there standing there saying, contractor, yes, you did this correctly, as we go through projects. So that's what we're paying for in the second grant that we got.
And that's 45%, and it's all funded by grant.
Except for our 5%.
Right.
We have 5% FDOT, 95% of aid.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to get some clarification.
You'd love those deals, wouldn't you?
I would love that deal.
All right. Any other questions on that? All right, seeing none, that then brings us to our city attorney.
All right.
Thank you, Ashley.
The first reading ordinance is for the annexation of lands into the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District's boundaries. It's already in the city limits, but this would just be into the Citrus Connections boundaries. This is, property's located, I think Patrick's put the location of the property on the map there, way up in the northeast section of the city, at the intersection of Epicenter Boulevard and Old Polk City Road. So this will just simply, the property owners has agreed to this, and this will subject the property to the Citrus Connections ad valorem. I believe it's 2 mills?
5.
It's 5 mills? Okay.
4.5.
Okay.
Yes. Does that include any adjoining parking long-term?
This one is kind of unique in that it's more for like a outdoor storage location, but it's tied to or related to some of the other business parks nearby that are in unincorporated Polk County.
Just trying to figure out why this property looks so familiar. Can we just?
The truck line and then
This is Gator Freightways.
Gator Freight, yeah.
Amazon on the old drag strip site, Old Polk City Road, and 33 is down below. And so this one came to the Citrus Connection Board of Directors, I think last month, and is now coming forward for ratification by the City Commission.
Yes. Well, but you're right. And so you think about that, this is a great way for employees to get up there that wouldn't have in an employment center.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it'd be terrific. Any other questions on this one or comments? All right, next, thank you, Chuck. This takes us 7B1.
Good morning, Ramona Sirianni for the City Attorney's Office. We have an agreement with Wolford Inc. This is an update to the airport's business plan. The last airport business plan that was developed was back in 2014, and since that time, all the recommendations have been implemented. Therefore, the need to develop a new updated airport business plan. This will provide a detailed analysis of the airport's business opportunities, its financial health, operating structure in order to help develop key target areas for future growth and improvement of the airport. The city's purchasing department issued an RFQ. In response to that, we had 3 contractors or consultants that provided proposals, and Wolpert Inc. was selected as the most responsive consultant to provide those services that best met the needs of the airport. That was comprised of a committee that included the airport assistant director, the airport planning manager, airport customer experience manager, and also the city's assistant finance director as well. Some of the key components of that will be to look at the mission, vision, and values, do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, look at goals, a financial analysis of the airport, including budgeting and accounting controls, also take a look at the airport's debt structure and future funding opportunities for future capital improvement projects, and review the airport operating structure and governance, as well as the economic impact to the overall community from the airport. The term of the agreement would be effective upon City Commission approval, and it will continue for a period of 12 months. The total cost is $345,000. However, that cost will be funded, half of which, $172,500, is through the Public Transportation Grant Agreement funding from FDOT, and then the remaining 50% cost will be provided from the unappropriated surplus of the airport's operating funds. And we would ask for your favorable approval for this.
I would add to this, because you might think about why are we having to have an additional recommendation and study when we've just done the Atkins-Reales master plan. This is completely different from that. This is about internal operations and internal vision and missions, and you might want to just round this out a little bit, Chris. I apologize.
Yeah, once again, Chris Halsey, Airport Director. So this is the business plan that we had talked about a little while ago. After executing our previous business plan fully in a short period of time, we really need to look at how are we going to move the airport forward on the business side of the house, administrative side of the house. We do a lot of planning, like terminal area master plans and airfield master plans. This is like our business plan part. And especially with some of the future projects at the airport, they're being larger, bigger dollars. We are going to have our partners from finance come in with us, and we're going to sit down holistically and look at our debt structure, how we're going to pay debt, what's good, what's bad. At what point can we get a bond rating of our own, right? And that kind of stuff. So it's an opportunity to really look inward on our operation and our business side of the house and see where our opportunities are moving forward. Paired with everything else we're doing, and every one of these projects kind of pieced together to make one big picture of how we need to move forward with the airport as we move into the future.
In a very responsible way. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Next item is the termination agreement with the FDOT for the New York Avenue pedestrian overpass project. You probably remember that one from back in, it's actually May of 2025.
Yes.
That the City Commission took that up and authorized, entered into that agreement. Under that agreement, CSX was going to allow the FDOT to construct an overpass over their right-of-way at New York Avenue. The DOT was going to pay all the cost of constructing that bridge, and then the city just had to accept jurisdiction and maintenance responsibility in the future going forward after it was constructed. Unfortunately, a couple months later, the legislature defunded that in their budget, so there's no money for them to construct that project. The contract did provide and had a non-appropriation clause that said if legislature doesn't appropriate money, we can cancel the contract. So that is what is happening now.
So for us to redo this, we'd have to pass this again later if we thought the appropriations were going to exist. Right. And maybe not even in that location?
It's years in the making.
I know.
And Chuck Barbie, Community Economic Development. Kind of as we discussed previously, I mean, this all goes back to the Pokerell study. So from about 2009 to 2013, we were trying to figure out ways to mitigate the impacts of additional freight rail traffic through downtown Lakeland. And so New York Avenue is a part of that commitment from DOT to mitigate those impacts. New York Avenue is also part of, it's not a standalone, I mean, it's really serves its own unique demand, but it's also part of a larger network of bicycle and pedestrian facilities, downtown Lake Wire, and part of routes to get to Bonnet Springs and West Lakeland. The other thing that's strategic about New York Avenue as well is that it also connects the cycle track with Lake Wire and, the Dix Heights study that will be discussed on Monday, but also the West Lake Hunter Trail and connections as we extend further south and west into throughout all parts of Lakeland.
Over the lake.
So this is a very short section, but it's very strategic. Also gives us a great separation across a busy rail line. We were certainly disappointed that since the project was ready to go to construction, or the construction contract was going to be let in March, that we lost $11 to $13 million. The hope is, and staff's recommendation is that the commission also requests that DOT refund this project at its earliest available opportunity. This legislation also really is worth noting, and the TPO board members heard this the other day, is that not only do we lose New York Avenue, but also the State Route 60 overpass south of the ILC in Winter Haven was also removed from the work program. So this was 11 to 13 million, but there was another almost 70 million that was removed as well as other rail projects across the state, including Tri-Rail. So there are some implications throughout the state with losing this dedication for rail funding.
So it would go back, your request, if there was one later, would be in the very same spot?
Correct.
And we could wait another 10 years.
Well, that's
Not wrong.
that's the hope is that we can make the request of DOT to refund at the earliest available opportunity, and also we've had conversations with the TPO as well of how do we get this back on the priority list, and then also are there other things that can be done in the interim to provide other connections and other routes throughout the downtown and Lake Wire area. So we're trying to have conversations with the TPO. This is very unfortunate, but we also want DOT to understand this is still important, and we still need to keep moving and not let it just completely drop off the plan.
I'm sure this has,
Doesn't he?
yes, and it has to be very disappointing for you too.
Oh, it is. No, and there's been, and I also don't want to underestimate the significant amount of investment and public input that's been put into this. There are the feasibility studies, the project development environmental study. There is some right-of-way funding that was also budgeted for the aerial rights over the rail line, as well as the engagement on the design and the approaches. And so there's still a lot of value on this project, and we don't want those previous investments to be lost.
Thank you very much for that. This is a consent item because it's, oh yes, Commissioner Bennett.
Just curious with the Lake Wire study with the CRA, if you'll kind of tie this into that?
Absolutely. And in fact, we have an exhibit, Commissioner McCarley. We've got an updated exhibit that shows how all of this ties in together. Because once you get from New York, or from this overpass to the cycle track, you're 1,000 feet from the intermodal center site. And the Citrus Connection heard the other day the award of the contract for the environmental analysis for that. So everything in here is all connected to each other.
So I had asked the staff to create kind of a very simple diagram of the pieces of the puzzle that we would look at.
Yeah, because if you can only cross it once, is that the best place?
Right.
Better to know now than in 10 years, So if we have a study on it and this is, denied, it's a good time, as good a time as any to say if this is the most strategic way we can all.
And this is something too that is the scope of the Lake Wire master plan was being discussed. We did add information about New York Avenue, the intermodal center, all of these other things that they're all built into the program. Well, we can certainly have a map that we can send around to show that. I know this is right now on consent, but we can have a map to send around to everybody that shows how this all plays out together.
Well, and it seems so simple for me just to go right and then go down Missouri. You can go right to Swan Brewing that way on my bike. But, as Missouri, gets more traffic, that will be the thoroughfare. New York is sort of saved for pedestrian bike, friendliness. So, but you got to keep repeating that, otherwise it does seem like the bike path.
And with the quiet zone, that's the other thing too, is that just we want to keep as much, seal off the rail corridor downtown as much as possible. So this is all, also related to the quiet zone, and so there's just a lot of different levels here that we want to protect.
If you felt like you wanted to take this off consent for purposes of just enunciation of
I think it pairs well with the Lake Wire study.
There's also a lot more to Lake Wire study I think will be shared on Monday as well, too.
Correct.
Right. I know part of Freedom Park wasn't discussed, and the remediation of that property that would be necessary.
It gives us an opportunity to talk about all that.
And it's about connectivity.
You want to take it off consent?
I mean, up to you
I think it's a
guys.
good idea.
Yeah, I do. I mean,
Yeah, okay, good.
You gotta say it over and over 10 years.
Thank you very much.
Not that we won't have another chance. Okay, we take that one off consent. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry for the disappointment, but I appreciate the persistent pursuit.
Well, we keep working at it.
Number 3.
This is Ramona Siriani for the City Attorney's Office. This is an agreement with Napa Auto Parts. They serve as the in-house parts store to manage the purchase of inventory for fleet as an integral part of our fleet for parts, materials, and other items. That includes fluids and tires. We are seeking to cooperatively purchased through the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office RFP. Napa has been our on-site supplier for services for fleet since 2010. So this is a continuing relationship, just an additional new piggybacking contract off the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office contract. By utilizing this, the technology that interfaces with the city's fleet software systems, we are gaining a number of efficiencies, a reduction in pricing and markups due to Napa's national buying power. In addition, we take advantage of cost reductions through agreements between Napa and other companies for non-Napa parts, and we're also able to keep stock available in the amount of $500,000 at no cost to the city until work orders are issued. The term of the agreement will be effective January 1st, subject to City Commission approval. It will continue through 2029. It also contains 5 additional one-year renewal options upon mutual written agreement of the parties. The total estimated spend that fleet has every year is about $2.8 million, and that is contained in fleet's FY26 budget. Any additional renewals that would be exercised would also be required to have budget approval by the City Commission in those subsequent budget years.
This is, by the way, a fabulous arrangement in so many regards, because we make a commitment to them to keep $500,000 worth of inventory, or at least within that range, and they have passed that on at 10% growth.
And Gary McLean's here from Fleet, who can speak.
I, as a former parts guy, I look at that and go, I don't know if they make any money. Gary, any comments on this?
Gary McLean, Fleet Manager. This contract shift, we're moving from Sourcewell to the Florida Sheriff's Association's bid. It's more predictable. There are a couple more benefits, but it's mostly the same thing we've been doing. We now have a long-term agreement, and nothing's changing, and we're constantly falling in and out of contracts using Sourcewell.
Nice.
This is nice and predictable, and I'll probably retire before I have to worry about doing it or die, one of the two. So
Great. And they supply well, correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's terrific. Okay, any questions on this at all? Well, I'll feel that way. That would bring us to
We're at Bentley Systems number
4, so 7B4.
All right, Alex Landback for the City Attorney's Office. This is an agreement with Bentley Systems Incorporated for purchase of software subscription under their Enterprise 365 Public Sector Program. This is a multi-year purchase order that's going to be governed by the terms and conditions that were recently amended last December. The city utilizes this suite of software across multiple departments, and so this is going to be getting us 88 software licenses for about 7 applications. Purchasing is approved. Bentley is a sole source provider for these products. This would be a 3-year deal effective January 1. Total cost for all 3 years at the end is $455,945. Year 1 of $144,630 is included in IT's FY26 budget. Funding for years 2 and 3 would be subject to future approval.
Is it all water and sewer primarily?
I have water utilities, electric, public works. I don't know. Anybody else?
Tracy's got it.
Tracy Kirkpatrick, GIS manager. A lot of departments use it. Public Works uses it some. Electric uses it for certain things. Substation design is often done with the software as well. There's water modeling, wastewater treatment modeling as well. But the primary product is MicroStation from, from Bentley, which is a CAD software similar to AutoCAD.
Okay. So primarily for design?
There are quite a few software products there. We're using about 7 of them today. We have access to a lot more, though, if we need to, and we can try them out without additional cost. Some of it is for design, some of it is for modeling purposes.
Got it. So do you so you use GIS as an integration to it or not at all?
At times, yes.
Yeah, okay.
But most of this is for the engineering teams.
And controlling switches and what would happen?
There's no control access to these software products.
Okay.
Those are typically done through SCADA systems from the wastewater treatment plant.
So it's modeling primarily?
Primarily modeling.
Modeling and design, okay.
And it is a subscription service.
Gotcha. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Mona, what's next?
Okay, lease agreement with Appraisal Central Inc. This is for 3,000 square feet of hangar space that's located on the south side of the airport and on the eastern side of Airside Center. Appraisal Central has been a tenant at the airport since 2012. That particular lease agreement with Appraisal Central expired at the end of November of this year. So the parties are now requesting to enter into a new lease agreement for an initial term of 5 years. That would have a retroactive effective date of December 1st upon City Commission approval. And it also contains 2 additional 1-year renewals upon mutual written agreement of the parties. The base rent for year 1 will be $1,317.50 per month, or $15,810 annually. And then beginning on December 1st, 2026, base rent will be subject to an annual 2.5% increase, and that 2.5% increase will also occur for each renewal period as well if they are exercised. In accordance with the lease, the airport will be responsible for paying all utilities. That includes electric, water, wastewater, stormwater, refuse collection, and heating, air conditioning as well.
Chris, any comments on base rent and per square foot and what's happening? And this is 527.
Yeah, so with this facility, and he has the half, there's no back wall, so it's like open bay, there's a fence that separates tenant space right there. It's been in there a long time. At that 527, it's reasonable for what that space is, and also a very long-term tenant who has never missed a payment in all those years, by the way.
And that's value.
Very big.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Ramona Sirianni for the City Attorney's Office. This is an agreement with Hubbard Construction Company. This is for the construction component of the paved shoulders along Taxiway A at the airport. You heard the engineering component change order that Ashley presented earlier. In accordance with FAA design standards, in accordance with the FAA advisory circulars, TDG 5 taxiways require that 30-foot wide paved shoulder that was previously referenced. So the city's purchasing department issued a bid in May of 2025 for construction services. They received only 1 bid, and that was from Hubbard Construction Company. The airport's engineer of record, Atkins Realis, along with airport staff, however, evaluated the bid and determined that it met all of the city's requirements. Pursuant to the agreement, Hubbard Construction Company's scope of work will include that installation of the 30-foot wide paved shoulders along Taxiway A, and it also will include the installation of new LED taxiway edge lighting, airfield directional signage, some stormwater drainage conveyances, some pavement markings, and also grading of the airfield, infield areas, and also sod installation. The term of the agreement upon City Commission approval, it's expected that the project will be completed in about 165 days. The total cost is $6,825,967.25. However, that funding is allocated through a number of grants. The FAA Airport Improvement Program grant will cover $3,761,107.95. The City Commission did approve that grant back in September of this year. Then there's also an FAA program grant that covers $2,723,560.93 of that. And also, lastly, an FDOT Aviation Work Program grant, which will cover $170,649, which leaves the remaining of that to be covered from airport surplus funds in the amount of $170,649.37. And there are no additional appropriations needed for this project, for the services for this project.
Grateful for that, and expensive.
Yep.
Wow. That's just because it bears so much weight, potentially.
This is Craig's item. I brought him to talk about this.
Good morning, Craig Stewart. I'm the Assistant Director here at Lakeland Airport. This project is to bring us up to FAA compliance and the pave shoulders for the duration of Alpha. Shoulders were completed on the east side on a previous project several years ago as part of the Alpha Bravo Charlie project. So this is just to bring the rest of taxiway Alpha up to standards.
And minimize FOD. Minimize FOD generation.
And minimize FOD generation.
Okay, interesting. Anything else? Questions? Thank you very much, and thank you for the funding.
All right, before I go into the next item, we're down to 2 commissioners. You just reminded me, we have a project workshop scheduled after this. So, we got people, I'm sure, that are out there waiting.
And we apologize for that. We did not realize we'd have the commission shrinkage we have today. And so, rather than waste people's well-prepared time, we'd like to move that to a later point. Okay.
All right, so the next item is a couple of agreements, recyclable materials processing agreements. We're doing something a little different this year. We did an RFP. It had 4 different respondents to that, and we are recommending that we split recycling into commercial and residential. The city's recycling trucks will continue to pick up all residential and commercial recycling at properties, but they will take that recycling to different MRF facilities, and MRF is a materials recycling facility. This will not affect the customers. They won't see a change to this. It'll just affect where solid waste takes the recyclable materials. The way these contracts are structured is we pay a fee to the different providers and different MRFs for the right to take our materials to them. They then clean, bundle, and market our recyclables on a secondary market, and that raises money. That creates money, and whether we're in the red or the black depends on the balance between the fee that we pay versus what the secondary market is bringing for those materials. So that's the way these contracts are set up as well. The residentials with Republic, which it has been for some time now, and we have a new contract with Recycling Services of Florida for the commercial. And Gene can briefly discuss, the recycling market has been very soft lately, but maybe we're bottoming out, Gene.
I hope so.
Yeah. And also, maybe address it's not just a question of what we pay to recycle materials, but you have to compare that to what we pay Cook County. We just landfill this material. So, Gene.
Gene Ginn, Solid Waste Manager, Solid Waste and Recycling Manager. So just to kind of give you a brief scenario of how it works. I know when you hear $154 a ton for recycling processing, that sounds like a big number. And in a single month, that does total $93,000 for processing. But what Palmer was talking about was what we call an average monthly value. our recycling over FY25 had an average monthly value of $112 a ton, based on its composition: aluminum cans, paper, cardboard, all the different things that make up our recycling program, which gives us $67,000 to work with. Of that, we take 85%, which is $57,000, which has so our processing cost nets out at about $36,000 a month for processing. It does cost us money. It's $59 a ton to have our recycling process. So you hear the $154 or $155 a ton. It actually costs us, once all the value is added back in, $59. But when you compare it to the landfill, the difference, we still have to haul the material somewhere. So the landfill would cost us about $28,000, and the processing is $35,000. So we end up at about a $7,500 to $8,000 difference in the recycling costs. So,
and you'd be filling a lot more the landfill faster.
Correct.
Which has a big issue.
So yeah, like I said, you hear that big $150 a ton price to take it into the door, but you back out the values and it takes it down to $59 a ton. And by FY30, the landfill is going to be $56 a ton. So it kind of narrows that gap, and it gets closer and closer as time goes on.
Yes.
There's an important part to that too. We also collect revenues from the residents.
Correct.
And the commercial customers. They're paying rates, so please don't assume that we're losing money.
No.
The last rate case you did, you bumped the recycling up a little bit, so we're not losing money anymore.
Yeah.
I know that we were edging very close to that.
We were losing money before you raised the rates.
Right.
Okay.
And
I remember that. I just trying to know the balance.
so make sure that piece doesn't get forgotten, that we also, everybody's paying for their service as well. So when you add that in, we're not losing money. We're not making,
Our goal is to break even.
that's our goal. It's to break even or stay a little bit ahead, because you're going to have those times where it dips even, the commodity market dips even lower.
Yeah.
And so we want to have that buffer in there. But the rate change you made made the difference.
Just to give you an idea, October, our materials worth about $79 a ton, and November it was worth $83. So we're getting a little bit back. I think we're heading in the right direction.
Why is that?
Just the commodities market, the secondary markets for fibers have gone up a little bit, which is the cardboard and paper and all those things. Amazon, about 50% of our stream is cardboard now. So, and then we did change the rate, so it's $3.60 per household is what people pay for residential recycling, which makes us whole. And with this contract, it gives us a little bit of breathing room.
Should we not be collecting something?
Everybody always talks about glass because it does subtract from our value, but then we would have to take that tonnage of glass, which is the heaviest material in recycling, and move it over to the landfill side. And
so that's why we do that primarily.
That's why we do that.
I've always wondered that.
We still recycle it. We still take it to either strategic or it's used for different applications in construction and things like that. So, in concrete. So yeah, it's still recycled. It's just a negative effect.
What about the cleanliness of our recycling at the present time, contamination?
I have Nick Lay with me here. He works very hard. He's our solid waste programs coordinator. Also handles all of our outreach and education. And our contamination rate for our residential program is right just under 18%, 17 point.
We were in the 20s.
We were in the 20s.
That's above the national wage.
Yeah, the average is probably in the 30s or 40% as far as contamination. Ours is down around 17.
Is film our big contaminator? I mean, like bags and stuff?
Yes, sir. Yeah, plastic wrap. I always try to equate it to, you've got plastic water bottles, you've got the cardboard container that holds it, and then shrunk wrap in plastic. That plastic it's shrunk wrap in is not recyclable. If it is film, plastic film of any kind, it should not be in your blue container.
No, I see that you do a lot of educational stuff. Is there something that we do that at certain times during the year? It seems like as we come at the beginning of a year, a lot of people try to create, New Year traditions or whatever things we like to do. Is that usually an optimum time to party send out a mailer as what's clean as opposed to what's dirty?
So Nick Lay, Solid Waste Program Coordinator, yes, Commissioner, we do annual mailers to talk about what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, but we also do social media blast on a monthly basis, as well as we do connect with all Lakeland residents via email, as well as we do offer tours for local groups to go visit the Republic MRF. We do have that great relationship with them, and they have offered to have you guys come out there and see the facility, as long as we can connect those together.
I appreciate that. That was more for my wife to hear. We got a little sticker on our little trash can. She'll take the recyclable bag that's still in the plastic and then put it in. But no, get on, do the bag.
You've killed all the effort of everything you've done.
So I tried telling her. So,
well,
This is so common, and people just don't realize it, but the sticker that we put on the can that has the pictures, that is the big winner.
Yeah.
And I do this is an OCD thing, but I do my neighbor's trash cans all around me. I separate them to the opposite corner to the driveway, so it's nice for the trucks to pick them up, The rental fee I charge is that when my trash is over, it goes into theirs as well. But I'll pull the film out of their bags and put it in the other can because it's so common to do that, and then you just have to tell them. And that picture, because people mean well, they just don't know.
Just grab the bag of recyclables and put the bag.
Our program, I will say our program, when you compare it to other cities and other, agencies that do the same thing we do, we are leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. And that's why we had 4 bidders, because our material is so clean.
Good deal.
So,
we have a neighborhood competition, and ours can win.
There you go.
Next year we'll have it at 10.
Well, it's hard to move that needle.
It sure is. 1% would be great.
1%.
Congratulations.
But glass doesn't count towards your
Contamination.
No.
Glass does not count. A plastic bag does.
Yep, which is so common. Okay. Next item, yes, finance. That takes us then to the next section, and we have a consent item there, appropriation.
So this one is pretty straightforward. Water Utilities back in November got a FDEP grant agreement approved for the Western Trunk Gravity Sewer Project. This is simply appropriating that $1 million.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay. Like on consent number 2.
Okay, a couple of utility items. I have a task authorization with Geosyntec Consultants. This is for the ongoing groundwater monitoring support out at McIntosh Power Plant. This is to comply with the coal combustion residual CCR rule for byproduct storage area out at the plant. And Geosyntec will be providing sample collection from the groundwatering monitoring wells, semi-annual detection and assessment monitoring support, preparing an annual groundwater monitoring and corrective action report for the byproduct storage area, conducting CCR landfill inspections, and then just providing overall CCR support, including regular meetings with Lakeland Electric staff. Upon approval, Geosyntec will commence the work, which is anticipated to can be completed by the end of January 2027. All the services pursuant to the task authorization are going to be in accordance with the continuing contract for environmental consulting services that the City Commission approved back in November of 2024. All the reimbursable expenses will be paid in accordance with the city's consultant expense reimbursement policy. And then the total cost of the work is estimated to be $186,200. That is included in Lakeland Electric's FY26 budget as well.
Is it shared with ORU? Any of the 6 cents?
Oh, you see?
Yes, so it's only about $112,000. We pay 60,
Yeah.
OUC pays 40 because they own 40% of land.
Good. Which might be something we wouldn't want to include in that recast, I think. Just because it keeps it as a matter of record and keeps it forefront in people's minds and liability. Not that it changes any of that. Okay, and then anything else on that?
No.
Number 2?
No, it's good, we're good.
Last but not least, an agreement with AI Inc. This is for intelligent vegetation management systems for Lakeland Electric. This is for a platform to reduce the vegetation-related risks across Lakeland Electric's transmission and distribution network. The goal here is to basically use AI, artificial intelligence, remote sensing and analytics tools to enhance LE's ability to manage vegetation impacts on system reliability. We currently have almost 1,500 miles of overhead lines that are on 3-year trim cycles, and so there's often issues with hypergrowth of vegetation, trees falling, and we currently use the Maximo system that we have for trim work management, but this would be a change. And this particular AI company, this would basically be a pilot project for a 1-year period. They would be using satellite-based vegetation analytics, multi-year planning and budgeting tools, mobile workforce workflows, and a unified data dashboard to perform the services. After the 1-year pilot project program, this would include 4 additional 1-year renewal options upon mutual written agreement of the parties. The 1-year cost for the pilot project is $99,900. If we were to exercise 4 additional options of renewal for a total of a 5-year contract, we would be looking at just under $500,000, $499,500 to be precise. The cost for the pilot project term of 1 year is included in LE's FY 2026 budget, and then the remaining years, should those renewals be exercised, and be subject to City Commission approval of the budget in those years.
How comprehensive on the lines is this? I mean, how comprehensively do we cover?
The letter. Technical expert, staff addressed it.
Scott Bishop Electric. Just to set some boundaries real quick, I know this is the last one of the day, it's been a long one, I'll go fast. We spend $9 million on men and chainsaws this year. We're going to spend cutting trees. So it's a huge part of our reliability. It's a significant effort. This thing takes our GIS GDB file analysis and does a 3-dimensional rendering of all of our circuits, 3-phase, single-phase, all that, lays on satellite image on top of it, and based on chlorophyll coloring, weather, growth patterns, satellite imagery, determines a nexus for where you need to be. So tactically, we can move our time and materials crews around faster, or maybe even move our trim cycles away from 3 years to 2 in some areas and 4 in others. The idea is to get more efficient, 1, at how we spend our dollars, and 2, at stopping outages before they happen as a result of trees. So we're excited about this one. We're not the first people to use this. Tallahassee's got it in the pilot phase. There are other utilities in Florida that are using it. The big IOUs like Entergy and stuff out in the Midwest are saving millions of dollars a year. Of course, they spend more than we do. So the idea is that this thing becomes the catalyst for efficiently managing trees, driving reliability, and driving efficiency of the dollar we spend. So we're going to pilot this thing first, and hopefully it works out. So far, it seems to in other spaces in the industry. We're going to grab it, utilize it in May. I'm coming back before we do our storm kind of preparedness and readiness that we always do, and I'll give you how this thing's rocking for us or not, and show you what it's capable of and how we're getting ready for storm hardening and reliability with this thing coming forward. We're expecting this thing to make a marked difference in our reliability numbers, and not just efficiently how we spend money. So, and I'm going to bring that back in May right before storm season, because I expect some results to actually really happen.
In terms of being able to assess.
I can move chainsaws and men like that.
So this is using a static satellite picture of at some given point in time.
It snaps and then we get updates. So it's not all the time. It's not a real-time satellite map. They'll give you an image and then they'll update it.
Snap.
Right now, we're set for once a year.
Got it.
Right now, we're set for once because of the price we got. You can scale that and get it monthly, and then the price isn't the same. But I want to see it work first before we go what we need to get on this.
And would you cut back
more in some of the areas even than you would normally cut back as a result of this as well. Not only that you'd be in there, but that this area grows faster, so we're gonna go another third.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
And you get further out in those areas, they're gonna come back to more often because the truck roll costs dollars. So lessen truck rolls, keep reliability up and efficiently spend money.
That's great.
Good stuff.
And affordable, and you kept under 100,000, which is really good.
A new deal.
He does.
Okay, anything else at all from utility? Anything else from you, Guy, or myself with respect to the good of the whole? Right, and thank you very much for all your patience this morning as we went through these things. We're adjourned.
Tells you lots more.
Yeah, but once everybody's leaving.
Probably very happy.
Then there's a lot.
Hopefully you don't sleepwalk in the winter.